Okay, family, this is a new test. I'm just testing out this new lighting setup that I have. That's crazy. People are asking me questions about the Turned Up Tuesday session I did on the 22nd about the Sabbath. I guess it wasn't really clear. I don't know. Which is odd to me because I took a whole hour and some change to go over why utilizing textual criticism is necessary to determine the time period in which the Shabbaton, which is the diminutive of the word Shabbat, happens during the period of sunrise to sunset, right? No, this is not a new camera. It's the same camera. This is the Logitech Brio 4K webcam. It just needs more light, right? And lighting actually increases the quality of the camera. And the best type of indoor lighting to get is what's called daylight or natural light. It's at 1600 lumens, which is pretty decent. It is 400 watt bulbs, two reading lights coming towards me, two going straight up. And they are outputting about 100 watts, which equates to the 1600 lumens based on the contrast of the brightness or the luminance or what they call brilliance. And it's only pushing out 26 watts to get 100 watt equivalent from a regular bulb, right? And these lamps that I got, I purchased them because I wanted to improve the video quality. And I'm looking at the aperture of this particular camera and the amount of light that can go through it. And that goes through with the pixel density and so forth. It needed that type of light to improve it, as well as I turned off the zoom because when you zoom in, you add pixelation and then what's called the extrapolation of the pixels. So therefore, it does affect the quality of the webcam. So I removed that. So what I'm going to be doing going forward is I'm going to get a backdrop behind me, either a green screen or I'm going to get one with the KHM logo. All right, so I'm going to start investing in these things to try and improve my setup. Also, my computer, and you guys know I'm in IT. I'm a tech enthusiast as well. I'm going to build a new computer in February. Right? I wanted to do it before the end of the year. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to do that, but I'm going to build a new one in February. All right, I'm going to put at least $3,500 in it with the parts as well as a new monitor. I'm going to get an ultra wide display. It's going to be, setup is 30, I think it's 38 inches. And I think it'll be curved as well. So that helps tremendously with that. So just wanted to just record it so you guys can tell me what you think. If the quality is good, hit 1. If the quality is good, hit 1. And just let me know. Again, this is just a test. I'm not really doing anything tonight. I was going to go live yesterday, but yesterday was such a long day. I didn't get a chance to do it tonight. I'm just now getting this set up together. So I'm not doing that either. I didn't even take off. Hold on. I didn't even take zoom off. I don't think I need to take autofocus off, but I'm going to do it just for fun. Let's kill autofocus. Let's keep it there. All right. So just hit 1. Let me know if it's good. I appreciate that. I work in cryptography and IT as well, specifically communication, security, and cyber defense. That's what's up. The last IT role that I had, which ended earlier this year because my department that I work for was downsized. Well, actually, the company was downsized in their IT department, and my department was eliminated. And it was transferred overseas to India. That was a 6-figure job that I was getting paid really good money because I was an IT solutions engineer. And because of impending coronavirus, they shut it down. Right. So I had to rely on my secondary sources of income that I had, which was pretty good, and focus on that. So now I'll be able to focus on ministry full time, which is good. And there's a lot of things that we're doing behind the scenes to build the ministry up. So I'm grateful to the Most High for that. I wanted to work that role until November, but I guess the Most High saw otherwise. And now I'm here full time with y'all and doing what I got to do on the side to take care of my family and my household and be able to assist the community via ministry. So shout out to everybody that's here right now. Again, it's like 2:10 in the morning. I didn't expect anybody to really be on, but I see all the night owls here. Shout out to Semper Reformata, Soldier of Christ, Neona B, Mark Moore, M. Kyles, Julian Apollos, Kevin Jones, Judah Warrior. What's going on? What's going on? Yeah, I agree. Definitely it did. So that's about it, family. I mean, I don't really plan on saying anything tonight. If y'all have some questions, you can definitely ask me some questions, but I just want to get at least 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes of footage just to make sure that everything is running smoothly as far as video quality and everything else. So shout out to Deanne Denaj in the building. Truth be told, Consuelo F. Shalom. He says 4:11 p.m. in South Korea, so it's too easy for me to be up right now. I would hope so. You know what I'm saying? I'm typically up at that time as well. Do you get up early, Semper Reformata? Because I know you're in the military overseas. What time do y'all wake up over there? Is it 5 a.m. Korean time, 6 a.m. Korean time? I'm definitely not a morning person. I can tell you that. I have to get up early every morning because I have children, but I mean, I'm definitely not a morning person. So this time I'll be researching several things that I'm working on for you guys. Still working on that lecture for you guys on COVID-19 and the vaccine. Working on some other things. So, I mean, there's people still asking me about the my subscription in regards to the Shabbat. He says 4:30 to 5 a.m. That's what time I'm going to bed. You know what I'm saying? That's funny, man. That's funny. Shout out to Sister Ya Asantawa, daughter of Zion. Shalom. Sister Ya Asantawa, did you get the email for the Natural Path to Eden? Let me know. Judah Warrior says always up late. That's what's up. Did you get the email, sis, for the Natural Path to Eden session that we had? We had a Zoom session for our Natural Path to Eden affiliates, future affiliates and consultants. We had a welcome session for them. And now we're going to transition to our training session once they get the required material to read the material. Also, I was recommended by my executive assistant staff that I should send a assessment test, so that way people know what to expect when they get into the training, as opposed to waiting until they come into the training to do that. So I'm probably going to work on that and do that for them, because the objective is health, man. Health is very serious for the community. She said she got okay, yeah, because in that email it had the links for everything that I had mentioned in this session. So I'm glad you got it. Initially, I did send it at 11:30 on Monday. Monday? What was the session? Was it Tuesday? I think it was last night. Tuesday night. This is Thursday. All right, Tuesday night. But it went to the wrong group. So I had to resend it earlier today. Once I double checked it with my team, and I resent it. So now everybody got it. You know what I'm saying? Because I got it, and now the rest of my team, they got it. So I'm glad you got it. And more people signed up since then. You know what I'm saying? I just put out a snapshot on Facebook and, just told people what they're missing out on. And then we got about 13 more people that just signed up for it. So we got a huge team, man. And again, it was like 10 to 12 people that didn't make it and 6 people that didn't respond. So this program is going to be revolutionary for the community, man. It's really serious. And I urge everybody watching this channel to sign up. You can either get the he says, was that Zoom recorded? Yeah. So Semper Reformata, I think you are a Patreon. So if you are a Patreon, because I know I'm a Patreon of you, if you are a Patreon, it's there as well. If you did miss it, just email me and I'll send it to you so you get it. All right. So we offer the services for anybody that has some decline in their health, any ailments, any conditions that they're suffering from, or if you're looking for a part-time job, full-time job, then you can get employment doing an affiliate program or a consultant consultation, or being a consultant performing consultations. So those are those ways. Shout out to Jaslyn Berry in the building. It's, what time is it? Sis? 11 o'clock your time. 11 o'clock your time. I'll be on our session tonight with Vanessa, Sister Vanessa, and knock that out with y'all. And I also, Jaslyn, since you're here, I also got 2 more people to help me out, because I know that you're working physically with the team there. So I got 2 more people to help me out with this project, so I can expedite it very quick. It's just last week and this week threw me off entirely, which is definitely not good. But starting next week, I should be good, right? Because with these holidays, a lot of places that I do my errands, they're closed, or they close early, or they have limited hours. And then my children are home with me, on last Thursday, Friday, and this Thursday and Friday, so that kind of throws me off a lot. But nonetheless, we should be back on track starting on Monday. So once I get through this week, we'll be back on track starting on Monday. And I know that the curriculum needs to be done in January. So I'm about 40% done with it. So I'm going to put a little bit more time in so I can complete that as well. And also for the classes that we're doing, the classes will begin the last week of January. So I'm working on a PowerPoint for that. And those classes, the ones that I launch, I'm going to do a intro PowerPoint to kind of walk you through on the importance of it. And then on that Tuesday and then that Thursday, I'm going to do a sample session. And then the next month, which is February, those will only be for $20 or more pledges on Patreon, and or people that pay a la carte for it, which is $40 for the classes. If you pay a la carte outside of Patreon, you get 4 sessions in a month, which breaks down to about $10 per session. And after you do one session, 1 or 2 months, you'll be able to get it, But some people may be addicted. They may continue to come on so that way they can see what we're looking into next. But it's extremely holistic, and we look at all the parts before, attempting to exegete the text, So Niana, that's excellent, sis. Please, if you have the app, please grab the app. Niana, do you have the app? Shout out to my brother Lab Judah in the building. What's going on? You are absolutely right, my brother. Semper Reformata. It really is. However, we have to be able to also be able to look at a lot or review a lot of the medical journals and scientific articles that are peer reviewed in regards to a lot of things that we suggest in the realm of naturopathy, right? So I always tell people all the time, you have to be able to identify the mechanism of action that drives the mode of action. All right. So the mechanism of action is really the pathway that a particular phytochemical or synthetic chemical takes in order for it to have its desired result. And the mode of action is the resulting action after the mechanism of action acts on the target. Okay. And that's pretty much how that works. A lot of times we talk to these health gurus, they don't even know the technicalities of that. So things can just be empirical, right? So that means to say, hey, I'm going to give you this. Ginger. And the ginger is going to help soothe your stomach because it's an anti-inflammatory. So you can say, okay, so what phytochemical that is in the actual ginger itself that produces this effect, and how can you test the efficacy of it? Has it been tested, like in vitro in a lab and in vivo with real people, do clinical trials, whatever the case may be? These things that, this is stuff that we like to teach in regards to health, because if you don't do that, you can get very pseudo. Right. Because I've heard a lot of pseudo claims, especially with this coronavirus situation going on. A lot of pseudo claims have come out, and there's no way to check people from throwing out this information that can possibly be damaging to people. You know what I'm saying? Then I hear people talk about, the cell, and it's talking about viruses are not real. And then they say that the cell itself it's throwing up. You know what I'm saying? Which is crazy, because when I was in college, I did do some lab work in college because I was in forensic psychology, and we had to do some real forensic work too in the lab. So I was actually able to see bacteria and stuff like that, which I thought was interesting. But there's people that say that viruses don't exist and bacteria doesn't exist. That's kind of crazy. These things do exist. And then, what's recombination is right now they're talking about a new strain of the coronavirus, which should not really freak anybody out if you understand the science of it. when they sequence the genome, and again, I'm going to bring this out when I do the presentation. But when they sequence the genome, when you sequence in the genome, you're actually able to see all the various proteins and what they call associate proteins or accessory proteins that make up the actual virus. And each one of these things help to code for something else. And mRNA, which is messenger ribonucleic acid, deoxynucleic acid is what we call DNA. And the reason why it's called deoxy is because it does not have an oxygen molecule attached to it, because it's made up of a double helix of various nucleotides. And what your messenger RNA is that is a single strand with nucleotides on it. And that messenger RNA is kicked out of the DNA, and it is then sent to the ribosome, and the ribosome processes it and turns it into tRNA. So that way it can build out amino acids, which are proteins that go and help perform different functions of the cell. So what the coronavirus does is that it hijacks the or it inserts its own mRNA into the body's ribosome, thus taking over the manufacturing plant of the cell and forces the cell to produce its own RNA or its own what we call virions that then bud out and go. And so understand this entire process from the time it enters into the cell and what it does, then you'll be able to understand this new vaccine. This new vaccine is extremely interesting because this new vaccine works with taking a modified version of the actual virus itself. So the virus makes up several things. So when you see the genome, you see these accessory proteins, and they all have little functions. But remember, the genome for a virus is extremely small. It goes up to maybe 32 kilobytes, right? It's very small when we actually sequence it out. So it's very small. So it's a limited. However, it is very interesting how viruses work, given the fact that it lacks a actual nucleus itself, and a lot of the functions that normal cells do have. Viruses are very interesting things. So nonetheless, what it does is that it looking at that sequence, there's various proteins. So what they did was they cut out the S protein. So you have the S protein, you have the M protein for the membrane, then you have your protein for the RNA, and then you have the envelope, right? So you have the S, M, E, N, right? Those are the major proteins that make up the actual virus. So what they do is that they slice off what's called the S protein or the spike protein. And that is the thing that gives the coronavirus its signature feature, which looks like a crown. So it's this piece that sticks off of it. And what that does is that when it goes into the body, it connects into your cells. So your cells have, extensions that come outside of the cell. And the purpose of the extensions is to latch on to various items that is in the blood. So that way it can then take it in, do endocytosis, right? It could then take it in. And what the virus does is that its spike protein touches on two areas of this. And because it connects into what's called the ACE2, and I go over all of this in the lecture formally, it allows entry of the virus into the actual cell. And then the natural processes of the cell guides that in the cytoplasm on its way to the ribosome, which hijacks the manufacturing plant of the cell, right? Correct, Semper Reformata. And scholars in the field are actually split on that, whether it's alive or not, or what actually denotes life. So the key thing is the actual S protein that they slice out of the actual virus. So it doesn't become infectious because all the other proteins that it needs has been eliminated. So they tell us. And they're just keeping the S protein. And what they do is they create what's called a lipid nanoparticle. So a lipid nanoparticle is the housing for the actual the virus itself. And the reason why you need that is because if you just inject mRNA into the body has natural enzymes that what they call cleaves the backbone of the RNA, because you don't want foreign RNA just floating around in the body, because if it can make its way into a cell, that's a wrap, You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? So let's say you have some random plant RNA that makes its way into your body. If it gets into your bloodstream or whatever, or anywhere in your body, and tries to get into a cell, if it successfully makes it into a cell, which is extremely difficult, then it can hijack your actual ribosome and the machinery and make the actual animal cell produce plant cells. You know what I'm saying? Or any other kind of cells for any other kind of creature, whether it's alive or plant form that's out there. So it cleaves these things. So therefore, what they do is that they create this lipid nanoparticle. And that is the thing that people need to be aware of, because not only does it have that inside of that lipid, polylayer inside is water, but they also add what's called an adjuvant. And the adjuvant helps to force a reaction from the immune system, right, when it breaks open. And the purpose of this is because once this part of this RNA makes its way into your ribosome then starts to process that. And from there, it makes its way into the cytoplasm, and it attempts to bud off. However, your cells have what's called the MHC1, and I'll go over all of that, what that major histological thing is. And what it does is that it samples the protein from within itself onto the surface, so that way it can attract what's called the T cell, because T cells, they're constantly in your body and they're looking for issues with cells. And when it presents the proteins from within the cell on the surface, the cell sees that, T cell sees that, cytotoxic T cell sees that, which is called the CD8 plus cell. It sees that something's wrong with it. It takes a portion of it and then it kills the actual cell. And then what it does is that it uses what it has broken off, and it helps to create what's called antibodies. But antibodies is done by the B cell. So some communication goes through via cytokines and so forth. And that process, again, is very, again, I'll show a chart so I can go through, phase by phase on how that process works. But my main concern when I first heard this is that it says that it forces the body to produce the S protein, which is very interesting. Because once it hijacks your body, it hijacks your cell, and your cell is able to produce a form of the virion by way of just the S protein. It's a foreign antigen that's in the body, or I could just say antigen. You don't want to add foreign to that. The immune system detects it. If you have what's called the APC, an antigen presenting cell, your neutrophils or antigen presenting cells, your dendritic cells or antigen presenting cells. Macrophages is also antigen presenting cells. And what does that mean? That means when your neutrophils and your macrophages, which is part of your innate immune system, when they're in the body, their job is to scour for injury, scour for infections, antigens, whatever. And when they go to attack it, they actually put it in what's called a lysosome. And the lysosome helps to break it down, and it keeps a portion of whatever it attacks. And it goes into the lymph nodes. It presents it to a T cell. The T cell identifies it. And what the T cell does is it creates memory T cells that remembers that particular, virus or bacteria or whatever the antigen is. And then what it does is that it communicates with a B cell, and it turns that B cell into a plasma cell by allowing that B cell to release antibodies, right? Antibodies are Y-looking shaped proteins that tag a virus or a bacteria to neutralize it, and also to bring attention to white blood cells to go and take care of it and clear it out your system. So a lot of this stuff, you have to know how it works technically, and I do. But what happens to me sometimes is when I try to explain it, I try to, at the same time, try to find a way to simplify this, because there's a lot of technical stuff, and I was reading up on this for years, and I know people in the medical field that I've consulted and asked questions with, and I read articles all the time and books all the time on this stuff. So I try to be very aware. So if I give any kind of suggestion, it's backed by some kind of peer-reviewed science, right? But once you understand it, okay, how do I fortify my body? Well, there's several natural items that you can take that actually neutralizes the virus, and prevents it from gaining entry into the cell. Because all you got to do, if you lock the virus outside of the cell, it's extremely vulnerable outside the cell, right? So you want to keep it so that way it is unable to penetrate the cell, and there's various phytochemicals that can assist in doing that, right? So that's important, right? So that's a good question. And what I'll do is I'll bring up an article that goes into detail about that. I'm glad you asked that. But that lipid layer, right? That lipid layer, which lipid is a form of a fat, right? It's a lipid layer. And most cells, the membrane of cells are made out of lipids, right? But that lipid layer is manufactured. They create that lipid layer, right? And they put stuff inside that lipid layer. However, this is part of biochemical nanoparticle technology, right? Which means they can modify this thing any way they see fit. And that is what is the major concern, all right? Now, how does a virus mutate? Do several things. All right, hold on real quick, family. All right, I'm gonna step away for 1 second. Yeah, so I'm just freestyling. So what I was saying is the concern is the lipid layer that is manufactured, and even the whole type process is unnatural. The fact that they're taking part of the virus, not the entire virus, but part of the virus, the spike protein. And the reason why they choose the spike protein is because once the bio is able to sample the spike protein and produce antibodies for it, it can pretty much tag any coronavirus, okay, that comes into the body with the antibody. So that's why they focused on that, and this is why they was able to accelerate this process so fast. However, the science of what's called mRNA vaccines has been attempted several times and never made it out of clinical trials. All right. So you have several phases of clinical trials. You have phase 1, 2, and 3. So you have preclinical, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And then from after phase 3, it goes to the FDA for approval, and then it gets onto the market. Right. However, all the other novel means new or unique or whatever, all the other novel mRNA vaccines, all of them halted and never made it out of clinical trials. And there's a reason for that. So I'm going to discuss that in the lecture because that is extremely pertinent, because even though this technology is not new, it has never successfully made it past clinical trials to get approval from the FDA. Never. However, BioNTech, the company that's worked with Pfizer, has been working with this technology for some time now, and it's been known for at least almost 10 years, right? And even longer. The conversation theoretically has been going on longer than that. But again, because of the way it works, the process has been shortened in regards to creating a vaccine. But I'm not taking anything that was experimental at one point and has not been proven, right? This new virus, this new vaccine, because it works differently, is the main reason why I'm not taking it, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen over a year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I'm not a fan of vaccines anyway. However, given a vaccine for something that has a less than 2% morbidity rate, that means the death rate for this is less than 2%. All right. That means if you get the virus, you have a 98% chance of surviving it. And it's only a 2% chance that you're going to die. So why am I rushing to get a vaccine for something that has a 2% morbidity rate? Now, you know, another virus that has a much larger morbidity rate. Let me check out. Let me show you Ebola, right? Let me show you this. And this is something I'm also going to bring out in my lecture as well, to show you the various viruses and the various morbidity rate. Okay. So when it comes to Ebola, Ebola has a 90% morbidity rate, up to 90%. So that is something I can see people freaking out about and rushing to get a vaccine. You understand? Because if it's morbidity rate, coronavirus has a 2% morbidity rate, 2%. All right. So again, there's a huge disparity there, right? So that's why I have to reconsider this. And again, because this technology, even though they've been testing it in vitro, there was never a type of vaccine like this in vivo, in the wild, right? That has been approved by the FDA. So for me, it's a wait and see. I don't need to get the vaccine, and I'm not telling nobody to do the same thing they want to do with me. You look at all the information, all the data, and you make your own decision. All I'm saying is because I've researched this and I tested this, right? This, by looking into this, and I speak to people in the medical field that I know. Naturopathic Eating program, we have nurses, we have doctors, we have fitness instructors, we have people who are naturopaths, people who do alternative medicine, who do herbal medicine, who do acupuncture, and this regularly. We got tons of people that we can bounce things off to when we speak about and ask them about these things. You know what I'm saying? And this is what I kind of do to kind of understand what's going on. And then I do my own independent research. But this is why I'm not a fan of this vaccine, because like I said, all the other ones, these mRNA vaccines, none of them passed clinical trials because there were so many issues with them. And now we see those issues starting to come out. However, we don't know how this is going to adversely affect people 5, 10, 15 years down the line, because again, this is the first vaccine of its type that's gotten FDA approval. They got billions of dollars to put this vaccine together. Pfizer, you know what I'm saying? Billions of dollars, right? And they need emergency use, EU. Emergency use is what to help to expedite it past the FDA trials. And again, they have to come out and say, oh, this thing is safe and it's been tested. There's a lot of things in an insert that they don't tell you about. You know what I'm saying? That's extremely important. And then now they say, oh, there's a new strain. Well, here's the thing. The new strain, are there any changes in what's called the S protein? If there's changes in the S protein, then we may have a problem, because what's going to probably happen is every time a new strain comes out, you're going to have to get a new vaccine. So they're saying that coronavirus could be seasonal. Now, remember, this coronavirus comes from a family called beta coronavirus, right? And then coronavirus is one of many. There are 4 coronaviruses that are already amongst the human population, 4 major ones, and a lot of them causes, mild common cold symptoms, and some of them can also drive pneumonia, you know what I'm saying, other things as well. So coronavirus is nothing new. It's already in circulation. The reason why this is called a novel coronavirus is because this is not a natural human coronavirus, right? From what they're positing. And if you look at the DNA sequence, the RNA sequence, you can tell that it has parts of 2 different strains of viruses, from the bats and from a pangolin. And through mutations and interactions with the pangolin and the humans, it was able to, over time, make its way into our population, where now, through successful modifications, through mutations, it was able to now infect our cells, right? So on top of that, what we're doing is working on a solution for people who do not want to be vaccinated. And we're getting a medical team together that can write these medical exemptions for individuals in our community so they can avoid vaccination. And also, when you put together these exemption letters, you're also acknowledging that you're willing to accept all risks that come with it, which is kind of crazy because it's saying that people who are not vaccinated are a threat to people who are vaccinated. How am I a threat, unvaccinated, to somebody who is vaccinated if the vaccination is supposed to protect you from the virus that I may potentially have? This doesn't make any sense. Okay. So there is conversation about making us take it, but they're not going to make us take it. See, COVID being the key thing is what's called herd immunity. Herd immunity means they need at least 75 to 85% of the population to either pass the virus naturally or via immunization. And if you can pass it via vaccination and through natural immunity, and you're immunized, at least 85% of the populace who is at generally exposed, then the 15% who is at least exposure, what happens is the 85% will be exposed to it. When a virus goes into them, they clear it within 2 weeks or so, depending if they're healthy or not, because most people die because they have pre-existing conditions, which predisposes them to have a more immunocompromised body, okay, which is called immunosuppression, okay? And when that happens, then the body is overworked and stressed. And when it gets infected, you have all types of things happen in what's called the alveoli sacs, which are responsible for capturing oxygen and diffusing it into the capillaries on the opposite end and bringing fresh oxygen into the body. Because remember, it oxygenates red blood cells that are full of carbon dioxide. So the carbon dioxide diffuses into the sacs. When you exhale and when you inhale, it brings oxygen and it goes and lines up and attaches to the hemoglobin in your red blood cell, and that brings it to the heart. And the heart pumps it out or pumps it so that way it goes throughout the body, to your circulatory system, right? So in understanding how this works and understanding what happens when the body tries to defend itself, when you are immune compromised, you're not to take it. Matter of fact, there's some people who have HIV or AIDS that they shouldn't take the virus because they're compromised. People with autoimmune diseases or extreme allergies or allergies to ingredients within the vaccine should not be taking this vaccine. This is what they say. Now what they're doing is they're trying to push it more because they want to get that herd immunity, because if the 85% get the virus or get the vaccination, and over a period of time, they're clearing out that particular virus out of our population, then the 15% who are not vaccinated, they're protected and they don't have to get any vaccination. So the objective for us is to get these medical exemptions so we can be on the outskirts and stay within the 15% population, let the 85% get the vaccination and so forth, so that we, the 15%, right, will, inciting that exemption, we're saying we're willing to wear masks or whatever the case, keep social distancing because we're not vaccinated. We're willing to do that so we don't have to take the vaccination, so we don't become a public health threat to people who are already vaccinated, if that even makes sense. And in doing so, we can avoid the vaccination, stay within the 15% populace that does not have to get vaccinated, as long as the 85% does get vaccinated and it clears out. Now, because of the internet, because of social media, the public is becoming more aware, and videos are able to go viral, not just on YouTube, but in other means as well. So you see that there's over 50% of the population that does not trust this new vaccine because, number one, it's never been FDA approved before, and the prior ones have failed. Okay. Number two, people are very leery for taking a vaccine for a virus that has a 2% morbidity rate. Flu has a higher morbidity rate, and the flu vaccine is only 20 to 60% effective, and the average being 40%. The flu vaccine not effective. You know why? Because so many strains happen all the time. These are what's called recombinant viruses. What does recombinant virus means? Well, it means this. Let me show you how this works, right? So if there is an infection of a coronavirus that comes into my cell, and this coronavirus hijacks my ribosomes, right, through mRNA and forces it to create more viruses. Let's say another coronavirus, which has mutated and is different from that coronavirus that's affecting my cell, I come into contact with it, it infects, or what's called co-infection. They both infect the same cell, and they both are hijacking the ribosomes. And now what happens is this virus and this virus of the same family with some mutations start to recombine and produce a different virus. Now, through that recombination, There may be some errors where it may not even be successful in budding off. However, if they link up and it buds off successfully, now you have a new strain. Now, what happens is if the changes are made to the envelope, if the changes are made to the membrane, if the changes are made to the RNA instructions or accessory proteins, that's one thing. But if the changes are made to the spike protein, you have a problem. You know why? Because this mRNA vaccine that they're making is only for the spike protein, for the one that is causing most of the infection. Now, if there are changes to that spike protein due to recombination or mutations, then that vaccine that you're taking now is not going to be effective 6 months from now when a new strain. Matter of fact, there's a new strain right now. They just found a dude in Colorado that had it. And they said that he was domestic, meaning that he didn't fly overseas and he got it. That's natural. The fact that we got a novel coronavirus is because of recombination. And because of recombination, this virus is able to mutate and make its way from an animal host to a human host. So this virus will continuously mutate. There will always be new strains, just like the flu virus. So that means you're going to always get a vaccine shot. Every time they find a new strain, they're going to do the same thing they did with this particular strain, and they're going to give you another shot. Perpetually, you're going to get shots. TG9 Deuce says, speaking of what is it? Oh, here. Speaking of flu, I need you all to pray for me. I'm slowly recovering. Yes, we'll consider pray for you, but also TG9 Deuce, we can also help you with that. All right. Email us at naturalpathtoeden@gmail.com. I'll put it in the chat. You can either email us or you can call us. Okay, and we can set you up with an appointment. And this is why we are educating everybody that is interested in our natural path to Eden to become consultants, because all the stuff that I'm saying to you, we want to make it common knowledge in our community, right? And we want to also be able to tell people how they can fortify their immune system in the event that they are in contact with coronavirus or any kind of novel virus that comes out. You understand what I'm saying? And this is why I'm doing this lecture, because I'm breaking down a lot of stuff for you guys. Right. And I'm using all of nothing but peer-reviewed scientific articles from the medical community to verify internally through in vitro studies and externally through in vivo studies of the efficacy of alternatives that exist out there. All right. Okay. I see you, TG9. Okay. So TG9 Deuce, that's the email and that's the number. You can call us, contact us. We'll set up an appointment for you. And you can either speak to me or one of my other consultants, and we'll give you some suggestions on how to assist you, right? Niana B, you're absolutely correct. Absolutely correct, all right? Thank you so much, Sister Ya'a Asantawa, daughter of Zion. There's no lecture tonight. I'm still working on that lecture. However, I will be going live today because it is New Year's Eve. So we will be addressing New Year's Eve. And anybody that wants to defend New Year's Eve, the smoke breaks will be within the session. But we're going to talk about New Year's Eve a little bit, go into it. I'm going to put a couple of notes together before I go to bed so I can be prepared for it. And hopefully I won't be too tired and I could be able to do a Freestyle Friday tomorrow, right? But this lecture, I'm aiming to do it next week, but I don't want to rush it. I want to put it together, and as soon as it's ready, right? And I'm gonna try to capture a lot of the new developments that's going on right now. Like I'm gonna go into the new strain and see if there's any changes to the S protein of this new strain, because if there is, guess what? You're gonna have to get another shot at some other time in the future. All right, because they're gonna have to go through the same process. It took them 10 months to create this vaccine. Then we gotta go do another 10 months for this new strain, and by that time another strain is gonna come out, and by that time another strain is gonna. It's gonna be perpetual, just like the flu shot. All right, this is what happens when you have recombinant viruses. All right, they will always change, always be a new strain. It's always going to happen. All right, so that's why we teach the Trinity of Health, right? Which is nutrition, diet, is supplementation, and exercise. All right, and that's why we tell people to get these pamphlets of these guys that you can get from Amazon, and these things give you almost everything you need to know in regards to health. It's not a replacement for the 835-page textbook that I recommend our consultants. However, it does streamline a lot of information so that way you can do consultations, or even you can help yourself with these quick guides. All right. And that's true. Poetry by Kamara Judah. And the thing is, they tell people in regards to Bell's palsy that they should not be getting the vaccine. Okay, they should not be getting the vaccine. All right, but when you go to Walmart to ask for a vaccine shot, they're telling you all of this. You think they're sharing all this information with you? They don't even give you the insert that has the warnings on it. They don't even give you none of that. Matter of fact, I did a video. Let me show you guys two things real quick. First, I'm going to show you guys. It's crazy. I'm surprised all of y'all are awake right now. Probably because some of y'all off from work tomorrow. That's probably why. Some of y'all probably off from work tomorrow. But anyway, let me see. So this right here is the cover for the actual presentation. Thank you so much also, sis, for the donation. I appreciate it. The Surviving COVID-19, a brief look at the virus, the vaccine alternative. This is what I'm going to be doing for you guys. I'm going to be going over this. I may have to change that December 2020 and put January 2021 because that's when I'm actually going to do it next year, right? Which is in one more day. But this is the cover of it. I put this cover together. This is the front cover of the presentation. And I think you guys will enjoy it. You know, I don't want to make it too lengthy because, you know, I could do 100+ page PowerPoint. I'm going to keep it under 20 slides. All right. My goal is 15 slides. I'm going to keep it at possibly 15 slides, no more than 20 slides. I'm going to keep it short. I am not going to get into too much technical stuff, but I'm going to get into major points that you need to know, because after you watch this, you'll be able to have a good idea on the virus itself, the statistics behind the virus in regards to the morbidity rate, its propensity to mutate and produce new strains, the origin of the actual virus. I'm going to show you its genome sequenced and go over each one of these proteins with you guys, show you how this relates to the actual vaccine, show you the previous mRNA vaccines that was produced that never made it past clinical trials and why that's a cause of concern. The lipid nanoparticle that they create to house a portion of the virus, which is this S protein, has adjuvants and water inside the lipid nanoparticle, but it's been synthetically manufactured, meaning that they can do all types of wild stuff with these nanoparticles. I'm not saying they're doing this run. However, they're experimenting with it, and there's a lot of different ways that they can dispatch this thing. So much so they was even thinking of getting mosquitoes and putting this into mosquitoes and flying them in the wild. I don't know if I'm gonna touch on that in this one, but that's for another discussion. But this thing is very, very important. They're working on COVID-19 passports. Okay, certain airlines already overseas have already implemented that. All right. But nonetheless, there's a lot of things that they can do with this technology, but you have to understand what the technology is. I'm gonna touch on that a little bit because a lot of people are putting out all types of wild conspiracy theories, and you don't have to, because there's data that exists that can validate a lot of your concern. You just have to use the data that's there. Okay. It's interesting because I shared a Reuters article on my page, and Reuters, if you go to any kind of independent website that looks at different news sources to see their reliability rating in regards to how factual the articles are, Reuters says that the COVID-19 vaccine that was out was causing false positive results for HIV. Did you know that Facebook went and it flagged? Now, it didn't do that maybe for the first month or so that I had this thing out there, but it wound up flagging that article from Reuters, which has a 95% reliability rating in regards to its accuracy with information. It wound up flagging that and saying that this is false information. It's crazy. It's crazy. There's a lot of damage control that's being done. All right. Wow. That's interesting, Sean. Thank you, Rodham USPM. I believe the luciferase vaccine is setting up the body molecules to not reject the quantum dot tattoo chip that Bill Gates invested in. Possibly. I'm glad you admit it and you said believe. But the key thing is to look at data. Check out the Black Swan project. Supposedly China was mixing the coronavirus with the H1 protein. So I'll look into the Black Swan Project. If you have an article for it, email it to me at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. You'll see the email right there scrolling up at the bottom of the screen. Email it to me so I can look at the data that you have on that. All right. That's what's up. And that's how we got to raise our children, sis. Our children have to know this from a young age until adulthood. And it becomes a lifestyle for them. So they don't have to be freaked out, you know what I'm saying, by this. All right. Okay. So that's that. There was something else that I wanted to show y'all real quick. Again, I'm just testing this to make sure that the quality of this live stream is good. Let me see something real quick. Let me see if I can. There we go. All right. Just again, let me know if the quality is okay. Hit one of the quality. Okay. Again, I'm just trying to test this out right now. Wasn't even planning to really talk about much, but just hit one if the quality is okay, because it looks okay from my end. I can't tell from you guys, and if the quality is good. Just let me know if the quality is okay. I think it looks a little blurry to me. Hold on. Yeah, just let me know if the quality. Okay, you said okay. All right. Cool. All right. So yeah, I just decided to invest into some lighting because I thought it was important. I'm also going to do a couple of other adjustments in regards to my setup because I want to increase the quality. Especially for the people that have been investing in this ministry for some time. I want to be able to ensure that not only are those funds going towards community needs through KHM and organizational needs, but it can also go towards me in improving my setup. So that way you guys can get everything you invest in back, which is called an ROI. Okay. All right. So it was something else I was going to say. I forgot. I was going to bring something else. I was going to show you guys something else. But nonetheless, that was a little bit on the coronavirus situation. So that's the next lecture I'm working on. And again, the one that I'm working on for January after that is going to be for the classes that we're going to start in January. And I think you're going to like them. I think you're going to like these classes. I pretty much want to give you guys the methodology and the resources that I utilize, the questions that I ask, and everything like that. So that way, when you guys approach the text, you're not looking at it from a linear perspective. You're actually considering all things. This is called eclectic approach to the text. Eclecticism is a form of textual criticism. And I like taking the eclectic route where you're looking at multiple things in order to determine the sum of something. You're looking at all the parts to determine the sum. Before coming to a conclusion, right? And the objective of taking this methodology, using this external data and internal data through means of the language, understanding the customs, the culture, the history, and other things, depending upon what's asked of the question. Sometimes you may have to look at the cognate of a particular word in other sister languages. Also look at cognate customs in other languages if there's absence of evidence within the text itself about something that is being glossed over. You have to go into the actual language itself. Sometimes syntax helps. Sometimes word studies help. See the use of the word in other contexts. But you can't do what's called the etymological fallacy, which means the usage of a particular word in a context. You can't assume that the denotation of the word equals the connotation of this usage in a particular passage. Right. So you got to, take a certain careful approach when you're doing certain word studies as well. And then, also, how do we eliminate dogma through an objective research methodology in regards to text? And that's why I do it. And I'm going to say this one time for you guys. I'm going to close off because we almost at an hour. And again, this is just a test. But what do I mean by that? Well, what I simply mean is that in order for us to ensure that what we're getting out of the text is what was intended by the author to the audience, is to remove any presuppositions and dogmas that we possess in reading the text, to flush that out the way, remove it, use an objective research methodology that gets us from a problem question to a thesis with a hypothesis in the middle and other phases of those steps. You started off by asking a problem question, and being able to get a result that could care less about how we feel, what we think, right? And then once we get that result, then the objective is, do I now implement this result, or do I shun it because it's going to make me uncomfortable with my particular disposition, right? And that's called cognitive dissonance if you go that route. So with me, I just go where the data leads, right? Where the end result leads. All right. And I think it's important that, when we do our studies, that is the approach that we take. All right. All right. I'll put this in here, Ron. I want to show you something. Let me put this in the chat. All right, there's this term here called cognitive resonance. All right, cognitive resonance. Well, what is cognitive resonance, right? Cognitive resonance is used to describe how information learned early in life can have a marked cognitive consequence later in life, affecting not only the duration for which information learned is actively used in decision making, but how this information can interfere with the acquisition of up-to-date information, right? Or the process of acquiring knowledge, understanding through thought, experience, in senses, and an amplifying effect when two systems interact with harmony. So what we want to do is we want to create a degree of cognitive resonance, because if cognitive resonance is properly applied, not only will we be able to bring together in harmony with things that we're cognitive about but can't put our finger on, and use external data and internal data to harmonize with that, but it also has a long-term effect in how we view the text. And that's why I had to go through the process of cultural reorientation, because through the process of cultural reorientation, it drives cognitive resonance, right? Which is extremely important. And I'll probably touch on cognitive resonance as opposed to, or diametrically opposed to, cognitive dissonance when I do this presentation for you guys. Hold on one second. Yeah. All right. So a lot of these terms are things that once you understand it, you can allow it to drive your studies. And the objective is to remove any obstacles, again, for fully understanding the text. All right. And that's one thing that you hear me, guys, that I say a lot of times, where I talk about, let me see. Oh, and this right here is interesting. So the faultiness of sola scriptura is that you cannot just use the text to interpret itself all the time. At some point, you're going to have to lean on some kind of external data when interpreting the text. Okay. And even though people say sola scriptura, a lot of dogma and doctrine has been formulated through church history. Okay. A lot of times people cannot. Somebody says the feed is choppy. Let me see. Is it still choppy? Let me know. Okay, you said it's catching up. All right. So I'm gonna try to fix that as well. I'm going to go wired soon, so that way I can eliminate choppiness, hopefully. or at least try to deduce where the problem lies in regards to my network is concerned. But just let me know, and yeah, I agree. Semper Reformata. And that's why I'm building on that. And this is why like works by John Walton and others actually examine things holistically, right? And I'm gonna give you an idea of what I mean, right? One of the things I had mentioned to you guys is the word daimonion, right? And daimonion is what we translate as demon. However, when you look at the use of the word in classical Greek and even its usage in the New Testament, it doesn't really take on that connotation until we get patristic sources that are having diatribes with opposing views. And they come and they start like for example, Justin Martyr was one of the first people to actually attach this idea of fallen angels to the word daimonion in his discourse, because he's one of the apologetic fathers, in his discourse with the Greek. And the Greek was giving him the definition of what daimonion is, but however, he extracted data from the book of Enoch that he was beholden to, and he imposed that onto the definition of daimonion. And that definition stuck, and it started to grow in development within the lines of Christianity, right, over time. However, if you go back to the provenance of where this idea comes from, or take this word daimonion within its own proper context, you'll see that daimonion, I try to explain to people what these quote unquote demons are, going back to the Hebrew word shedim, and looking at shedu from the sister language and its usage in primary texts from that culture, and then look at its usage in what's called the Tanakh first to see what was laid down. And then this is why you have to study the intertestamental period to see how different ideas started to develop towards the end of Persian captivity, Grecian captivity, and the Roman captivity. And you'll see that when the church fathers came on the scene, they started leveraging information from their previous backgrounds of understanding, as well as different things that they actually eisegeted into the text. Does that mean that all the church fathers eisegeted the text? No, there's parts of the text that they properly exegeted. However, there are parts of the text that they have eisegeted, and a lot of scholars have been going back over these patristic sources to kind of validate a lot of the claims that are being made within, right? Yes, the works of Plato is the earliest for daimonion, but that's why I talk about the Liddell Scott dictionary that goes into classical Greek, and it shows you the sources of this. Matter of fact, Homeric Greek. I brought this up in one of the previous live streams when I showed you guys the actual lexicon for Homeric Greek. We see the word daimonion in there, and we see its meaning. It's a intermediary entity that is neither fully malevolent or benefit or benevolent. It's neither. However, depending on its function in a particular society, it can pose that type of effect. So if we're looking at an entity that is adversarial, it's because a lot of these was called demons. And again, going back to the word shedim in the Hebrew, a lot of these demons are entities that are designed to protect other cultures, right? So if you encroach upon another culture's customs, practices, and or territory, now these entities have full reign to attack you, right? And that's typically what happens. If you go and commence necromancy, there are guardian spirits for the dead. They will go and they attack you, right, from other cultures. This is why the Most High told the children of Israel not to encounter, or when you encounter, not to engage in the customs of the heathens, right? We see that in Jeremiah chapter 10, and we also see that in Devarim, in Deuteronomy. And we also see that in the book of Vayikra or Leviticus. And there's a reason for that. When you understand in the ancient Near Eastern context, things wasn't in a vacuum. So cultures acculturated, ideas were shared and passed around. And there is a common understanding during that time period of what these entities were and how they functioned, right? So when you see these things and you do the study is, okay, let's look at this word and look at its usage, right? How consistent is the usage? In the case of it being used in the New Testament, you look at all the places where it's used, and then you compare that to the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of a Hebrew text, all right? And then once we compare those two, then we look at even earlier writings of classical Greek and compare it. And once you compare it from Koine Greek, from the New Testament, from the Septuagint, then classical Greek from other writings as well. We look at all the usages for this word and create what's called a semantic range, all right? Once you create the semantic range, then we take that semantic range and we look at different contexts to see where that range can lie to best help to interpret the text and also to understand the various conjugations of that particular word, all right, or what's called the inflections of that word, right, which can then change its usage within a particular passage. This is why learning Greek is important and why you need to understand that, right? So in examining this, when we do the actual classes, we're going to be doing these word studies and then using these word studies within the actual grammar of the language and see how that functions. I'm not going to get too deep with that because I know some people that watch this don't know anything about Greek, and I understand that. However, this is why we offer Greek courses and Hebrew courses on the Patreon, right? And this is why I recommend everybody to pledge $20 or more, because you get a full-fledged biblical Greek and biblical Hebrew essentials for laymen. And that course walks you through all the essentials so you can follow along with these discussions. You know how to use a lexicon. You know some basics in regards to the grammar. You can follow the commentaries. And you can do all of this. And that's the purpose of it, right? And then if you use Bible software like Logos and eSword and other ones like that, you know how to use these tools, right? And then if you see various nomenclatures underneath a particular word or these naming schemes, you can see, what does V mean, verb? What does a noun mean? I mean, N mean noun. What does A mean? The aorist tense. This is the Greek. Hebrew, you'll see the P for a verbal stem for the PL stem, which is the intensive. And then you'll be able to see, locate where the heric is at and where the dagesh is at, which doubles the middle consonant that intensifies the actual word. And that's how you can start to identify what the PL stem is. And you know what the first, second, and third aorist tense is. You know what a dative objective in regards to the accusative, you know what the direct object is, and you're looking for little markers. And these are things that we're going to point out when we do the actual classes. We're going to go into some of the linguistics, and then we're going to go into the cultural elements. We're going to go into sister cultures, if that helps us. We're going to go into word studies. We're going to look at various lexicons. For example, I brought out the Assyrian lexicon from the Oriental Institute of Chicago to show you guys various cognitive words, right, that we find in the Assyrians. And sometimes Assyrian lexicon, sometimes you have to go to the Akkadian lexicon because Akkadian's Eastern Semitic language, and you'll see cognates there as well. But it's also practices and the material culture, right? Because there's material culture, things that these people left behind that also gives us further information in interpreting the text. So this is why we have to look at things holistically, right? And this is the approach that we want to give to community. Bertree says, what do you think about the Codex Syneticus and its accuracy being the earliest New Testament? So the Codex Syneticus is not the earliest New Testament. The codex. Now, codex just simply means a book, singular. Codices is plural for books, right? Christians, quote unquote, did not create the codex. However, they made it popular, okay? Anything prior to first century AD, when it comes to like the Old Testament, you don't have a book form or codex because they use scrolls. And if you call something a book like Sefer, if you call that a book, that's what's called a linguistic gloss. And you're actually putting a definition in contemporary terms over a word that did not share that same definition, because what you're doing is you're creating what's called an anachronism. An anachronism means you're taking a modern contemporary understanding of something and you're placing it on a word, a term, or a subject matter in the past that had no knowledge of how we understand things today. So all of that is very, very important, right? So we get into that, and I give you guys all the tools that you need, the approach to take, give you some books that touch on the various subject matters. The thing that I did want to show you guys, and again, I try to cater to everybody, whether you only deal with the Tanakh, whether you only deal with the Torah, whether you only deal with the New Testament. Some people out there only deal with the New Testament, people that deal with both. I try to supply a research methodology, and I try to supply these sources. Now, again, this is not to put this, when I say this, and I'm gonna say this, and I know I gotta get off. This is just a test. But what I want people to understand is that when we do this, the objective of this is not to be secular. That's not why we're doing this. The objective to this is not to be, oh, I just got to be all concrete. The objective of this is to get a clear-cut understanding of what the text is conveying within its proper context. Because once you understand that within its proper context, you'll know how to make it relative to today, either by form or by principle, right? But if you're not interpreting within its proper context, then the translation to today is going to be off, and it's not going to be applicable, and you're not going to yield the intended results. right? So how do we strip away all of our presuppositions, dogmas, predisposition, etc., so we can just go into the text raw and get what we need out of it? Well, the only way to do that is to follow a step-by-step research methodology to give you an objective output of what the text is conveying. So now you can grab that and you can apply that. That is why we're doing this, right? And again, it's not to be fully secular. Oh, you got to understand, you need the Ruach. Yeah, you need the Ruach, right? The Ruach is to lead you day to day. But when you're going into your textual studies, everybody's thinking they rely on the Ruach. Everybody's not relying on the Ruach. People, they mislead themselves to think they're being led by the Ruach. Everybody's not being led by the Ruach, because if that's the case, then how come everybody's interpreting things differently? However, if you use an objective approach to get a particular end result or output, now what you do is you pray. You bring it up to the Most High in prayer. Prayer is an appeal. Yeah, I came to this conclusion. It's life altering. What do I do with this information? Where do I go with it? Right now, once you have that information, once you understand it and you're able to remove all of the man-made influences, now how you apply that, how you accept that, and where that brings you is the next step in your walk with the Most High. Right? This is why we have to study the text. Now, remember, the people written in the text, they didn't have to do any of this because they was living in the culture. They were not removed from the culture. They was living during the time when these events took place. However, we are not. We've been displaced from that. We've been disconnected from that. So we have to use this type of approach to get back to what they were experiencing before we can apply it today. All right. So he says, what New Testament is earlier than the Codex Syneticus? Now, remember I said a codex means a book. So the Codex Syneticus is from the Alexandrian text type, and that's one of the earliest extant manuscripts that we have of the New Testament that is complete. Okay, there's a couple of fragments, but it's complete. However, prior to that, you have what's called the P fragments. I have all the pre-fragments, and I share this when I was responding to James White and Vocab Malone in regards to textual criticism. All right, when dealing with Matthew chapter 28, verse 19. The P fragments predate the Codex Syneticus. Now, do you know what the P fragments are, Virtue? If you don't know what it is, I can show them to you. All right, I have transcriptions of all of them, and there's new ones being found, but I have transcriptions of almost all of them, and I looked through all of them, and they use that to compare with the codices as well, right? So again, just because something is earlier, right, as far as codices are concerned, does not necessarily mean does not necessarily makes it better. It is the weighing of various manuscripts, and it's different manuscript families. You have to weigh various manuscripts in order to determine where the weight of the evidence falls on, which one has the best explanation, right, for a particular passage by looking at various textual variants. And there's a methodology to do that. And there's several good books if you're interested in doing that. Matter of fact, I'm going to show you this book right here, where there's a new method that was discovered to help out with that approach. And I'm going to show it to you real quick. Let me bring it up on my screen. Where is it at? Hold on. Let me bring it up real quick. It is in my cloud storage. I think I loaded it up. I think I put it on the Patreon. Yeah, here it is right here. And Peter J. Gurry, somebody to really study when it comes to textual criticism. Dan Wallace is my favorite. I told y'all before. Bart Ehrman, he's also one of my favorites in regards to textual criticism. But Dan Wallace is probably like the cream de la cream when it comes to textual criticism. And his organization has done, I mean, tons of great work in textual studies of manuscripts. And some things they've done that has not been able to be reproduced by anyone else in the community, right? But what I want to do is I want to show you these resources, right? And these things are novel approaches to textual criticism that's out right now. So there's two books. One of them is called A New Approach to Textual Criticism, Introduction to the Coherence-Based Genealogical Method. If you guys want me to teach on that, I could teach on that as well, and kind of interest you into that. And then there's another book that actually goes into critiques of that particular method to show the strengths and weaknesses of it. But this is like cutting edge type stuff that they're doing now that we have computers and so forth and able to look at that. He said, I'm aware of some of them. I was just looking to see which complete manuscript you hold to be most accurate. There's no such thing as most accurate. It is looking at every passage and weighing all the textual. Now, I'll give you an example. Some of the majority text type manuscripts, which would be what's called the Byzantine text type family, have some shorter renderings of particular verses. Whereas when we look at those same things, and let's say Codex W, they have longer versions, right? And the research approach is that the shortest version is typically the most original. And then if you see an extension of that particular verse, it typically was added later. Either it was a scribal notation that was in the margin that made its way into a text, or it was a tradition that people held from maybe a previous manuscript we don't have today, or that was passed down, that they didn't add, or the scribe adds to the actual manuscript itself. This is why it's good to look at all these manuscripts to be able to do that type of deductive reasoning on it, right? But again, the important thing is, so S. McGee, my position on that is he's talking about the legalism of his day, all right? Because Paul was not against the law, just like Yeshua was not against the law. They were against the legalism, the excessive adherence to the law, where you're adding additional statutes and ordinances to create what's called a buffer so that people do not violate the core elements of the law. That is what Yeshua was against. And Yeshua made that clear when you read Matthew chapter 23 and verse 23. Okay. You see the same thing with Paul in regards to Acts. Paul was dealing with the Pharisees, and the Pharisees were the brothers who had came into the truth. And they were the ones telling people, oh, you know, you have to get the Gentiles circumcised, and they got to go according to the custom of Moses before they can receive salvation. And then Paul picks that up and talks about that in the book of Galatians. Who's he talking about? He's talking about this excessive adherence to the law, this legalism, which is this layer that was coupled on top of the law that the Pharisees brought into the picture. And that was an issue that he had about that. All right. So Karakta Saban Yasharala says, please make a lesson on your textual criticism method. I will. And we will discuss that when we do the classes. The classes, we're also going to look at various. And again, that's one of the steps. If you're examining a passage, are there other textual variants? Okay, that's important. And if so, what manuscript families are in? How early are they? How late are they? And does it change the actual interpretation of the actual passage, or if it's something that is just peripheral, right? That's important. So we go to the language, we go into textual variants. We look at, like I said, history, right? What's going on in history. Look at political, social, economic stresses. We look at geographical location. We look at the various sects in that region, the various topographical features in that area. We look at all of these things, right? The material culture that was left behind, sister cultures. We look at all of this stuff in order to properly discern what the text is trying to convey. Sometimes you may not need all of it. Sometimes you may need maybe look at 2 or 3 things. Sometimes you need to look at everything. It depends on the difficulty of the nuances in the passage, right? So yes, we will talk about that. However, if you're interested in me just doing a particular lesson on that, then I can do that as well. All right. So Eddie Machete says, what are your thoughts about people saying that Jesus, Yah, is actually Horus from Egypt, whom from him the story was taken regarding him having 12 disciples, healing the sick, did things, etc. So a lot of that is pseudo. Ask them for a primary source for any of that. Show me. Because if that was the case, that argument would have been made in patristic sources during the ante-Nicene period. From the 1st century church fathers to the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century church, we would have seen within that 300 plus year period, somebody saying that, well, your connection of Heru being Yeshua is wrong. We don't see any of that. Which means that idea was not going around during that time. A lot of people get that from Zeitgeist. All right? Zeitgeist and the creator of Zeitgeist brought this in. There's not a lot of primary evidence you have to support that. But if somebody can show me during the time of Yeshua being here, from the time he was there to the development of the church orthodoxy to the Nicene period, show me within those early years that any of the church fathers made a defense to that argument. Because if they have not made that, this is a new thing that came about. It's new. That did not exist then. Do you understand? This came about when Egyptomania came about after the rediscovery of these artifacts in Egypt by Napoleon and them, and the translation of what's called the Medu-Neter or the hieroglyphics came into effect, and people could go back and read these things. And then you had these fringe authors that started seeing different things that was the same and lining them up together. Again, you have to be able to give me some primary sources from the 1st century CE all the way up to at least the 4th century CE, where one of the church fathers or an opponent of the church fathers ever brought up this argument or made this claim or defended against this claim. Show it to me. If it's not there, it's modern. Okay? It's modern. And then we have to go into Kemet, Mizraim, or Egypt, and you have to show me where Heru had 12 disciples. What papyrus is that from? Because remember, I told you guys, I'm part of ARCE, American Research Center in Egypt. I'm part of that society. I went to several of their conferences, right? I have almost, I ain't gonna say all, but I have a lot of the papers that were written at those conferences that I read up. I have communication correspondence with some of these experts. This organization, all of the world's renowned Egyptologists, they come together and they present a paper of something that's novel in the field of study that they're researching, right? And then they put it there for other people who are enthusiasts or other scholars to come and read it and ask questions and stuff like that. So I get access to various channels to look at primary sources. And I ask people, is there a stele that goes into that? Is there a papyrus that goes into that? Is there a wall inscription, whether it's in a mortuary temple, a temple, or a tomb somewhere? Is it in a coffin text? A lot of those coffin texts are what we get from what's called pyramid text. Coffin text is when the middle class, etc., was able to take the things that's in the period text and put it on their coffins so that they have a way through the Amduat or the underworld and they're able to make it to the field of reeds. Show me a primary where Heru had 12 disciples. Somebody will have to actually produce that. Yes, that pseudo book. Oh man, that book is garbage. Yes, that pseudo book. So Eddie Machete, I know people make that, and no problem, my brother. Ask whoever's telling you that they must produce a source. Show us a source for that. It's just simply pseudo. That's just what it is. So virtue, that's not my position at all. That's not my position at all. However, a case is made for that, but that's not my position, right? Ego, I, me, ov, and ego, I, me are two different things. Now, in hermeneutical principle, one hermeneutical principle is the law of first reference, right? So when Yeshua first says ego, I, me, not ego, I, me, ov, which we see in the Septuagint for the Old Testament, but when he says ego, I, me, what is the context in which he's saying that? Where's the first time in the book of Yachanan, the book of John, that he's saying ego, I, me? If you can find that, look at the context. Because you'll see in that context, when you find it, John chapter 4, but when you find it, they actually put in parentheses he, which is the masculine pronoun singular, he. But look at the grammar. There's a grammar account for it. See, this is why you either have to know the language or use tools. And you'll be able to see that. So this is why syntax is important. This is why learning Greek grammar is important, because you're able to see this. This is why I tell people, if you want to get into the language, you have to get this book, a great compact guide. I love this book. Get this book and learn the grammar. And don't just learn it from Koine Greek. Also go back to classical Greek. Learn some classical Greek. Get some lexicons for classical Greek. Some lexicons also. This is just give you the grammar. This has a mini lexicon in the back as well. And you have to know the Greek word itself in order to search it in a lexicon. All right. But look at some grammar. Look at what kind of state the verb is in. All right. Look at how do you know that it should have a pronoun, or a pronoun should be added for emphasis during the translation. Understand these things. Right. All of that is important. because when you understand a lot of this data, you're able to eliminate a lot of these false doctrine, whether it's within our community, Christian community, Kemetic community, conscious community. You just have to do diligent studies. I like that. Spiritual pre-K. Sister Leah Atalia says, what books can you recommend for those of us who have just come and we're on level 1 spiritual pre-K? So the first thing is read the text. Always important. The second thing is to have some kind of tools to discern the text. Now, there's different ways of doing that. I always encourage people to learn the language. So sis, one of the major things that you need to do is to learn the language. The best way to learn the language is going through the biblical Hebrew or biblical Greek essentials for laymen, right? Now, you can purchase this course online if you want, but you're going to be paying a good amount of money. Or if you go to our Patreon, we'll give you access to it for free. And then everybody that after they go through that, then I coach them through it. And it's like when I do the studies, the classes, I'm going to coach people through the language to make sure that they're following what's being said. So that's the first thing. You have to learn some of the language. And this goes to the basics. Okay, the basics of the Greek and the basics of the Hebrew. That's number one. The second thing is I recommend you to learn the culture. Now, here are some books to learn the culture, and here's some books to help you with the language. Okay. Now, if you can get through the language and understand the culture with these sources, then you can better interpret what's going on in the text. All right. And again, there are sources that are for layman beginners, right? And I'm glad you asked that. All right. All right, so I don't want to lose what Leah Atalia is saying, but y'all are asking a lot of other questions here. So Eddie Machete says, do you agree that Egypt had slaves that enslaved Shem, or no, brother? Word has it that Hebraic names are carved into pillars in Egypt of Hebrew names in the Bible, still remain there to this day. What is the source of this epigraphy that you're talking about? What epigraphy is this? Where is it carved at? What pillars is it? What's the name of the source for that? And then we can examine it, because I know some Medunetia, or I can read some hieroglyphics as well. I demonstrated it back in 2016, 17 when I was going against the Kemetic community, because some of them can't even read the Medunetia or the hieroglyphics themselves. And a lot of it is reflective of Middle Egyptian, right? But find me that. Now, did Egypt have slaves? Yes, they did. Egypt did have slaves. They had slaves and they had servants. Now, I don't know what you're talking about. You might be talking about the Brooklyn Papyrus. Are you talking about the Brooklyn Papyrus? The Brooklyn Papyrus does have Semitic names in it. Is that what you're referring to? You probably saw that on what's the name of that movie? And I should know the name of it because I met Tim Mahoney and David Roll. Patterns of Evidence, the Exodus. You probably seen it on there because they mentioned the Brooklyn Papyrus in there. Are you talking about that? Let me know if you're talking about the Brooklyn Papyrus, because there are Semitic names in there. They have some cognates with some Hebrew names. So if that's what you're talking about, yes, let me know. Not specified name, but I did have this comment before. Do you believe this, though? Do I believe what? Let's remove belief and let's say, is there any evidence? If there's no evidence, then we could go into the realm of speculation, which can be belief. Okay. Or belief can be a presupposition in how we approach the information when there is a scarcity of data, extant data. Okay. So I don't want to deal with belief. If we have a source, let's deal with the source. If you don't have a source, then wherever this idea came from, somebody either built that off of a source or they just made a theory up, right? But we have to nail it down to some primary sources if we can and work from there. All right. Trey, TJ. So it is supposed to take 10. It's supposed to take 5 years. However, I did get it started with some other scholars and linguists and textual critics. However, we didn't really do much headway in there because so many things came up. So I didn't get a chance to do that. However, we're working on acquiring more resources, financial resources, so we can pay people to do it. Now, I'm going to be one of the lead researchers in regards to putting this together, and that the project's going to be under KHM. However, I'm outsourcing other professionals in that realm who have expertise to assist with this, but it costs money. It's not free. We're talking about thousands of dollars to get a project like that done. It costs a lot of money. So we're working on getting grants. We can take care of it, or you can donate. If you want, you can donate $100, $1,000 a month to us. We'll put it in a separate pot and we can use that to jumpstart this. You know what I'm saying? And finish the project. But the reason why we have not completed, my brother, is because it costs money. and it takes a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time to do that right now because I'm restructuring and getting KHM ready for 2021 so we can take over, you know what I'm saying, in regards to rebranding the public image of Israelites, and we can also effectually change things in the community for the better. That is my primary goal for this ministry. The research and scholarship part is really secondary, right? However, I do it because it's necessary, and it ties into the tagline of our organization. So that's why it has not been completed, because it takes time and it takes money. Time and money, right? So I started it out of my pocket, but it's far from finished. I think we completed maybe about 10% of it. You know what I'm saying? 9 to 10% of it. But you're talking about 90 more percent that needs to go into it. It's a long project, and it takes time and money. Okay. Yes, I still want to finish it. However, it takes time and money. All right. So now let me go back to other things that are being set up. So Karatasa said, how will your Hebrew class set up? No, so I'm not teaching Hebrew formally. I do speak on Hebrew when we do the classes. So we do touch on some basics of the language and maybe some intermediate elements of the language in order to understand the passage. So I do go into that. All right. However, I don't do any formal classes. The reason why is because, to me, doing a Hebrew class just for the language is not always effective with interpretation, because the language element has to be married to all the other elements that I talked about. So this is why I approach it holistically, and languages is one of many elements that makes up the composition of how to properly exegete or perform midrash on a passage. Okay. No problem, Trey. No problem. So Junior, no, I didn't see your question. I'm trying to reach everybody. So Sister Leah, let me help you out real quick. Let me show you. Hold on, let me show you this. Let me see if I can do this. Man, y'all making me do a full-fledged live stream right now. Yo, I was just testing this thing out, family. I see the quality is good, but I need to work on the bit rate, because it looks like it's shifting because of my internet. It can either be my router, or it can actually be the gateway, which is my modem. Because Comcast, well, I'm not going to say anything negative about Comcast because I don't want them to affect this. I'm not on my VPN or nothing like that. But let's just say it can be suspect. The connection can be suspect and can interfere with the quality. But nevertheless, let me bring this up real quick. So I want to address what you're saying real quick. So you need to learn biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek. All right. You can buy these two books here as you're learning it. So you have these quick reference guides, right? You can buy these books on Amazon. It's called Biblical Hebrew, a compact guide, and it's called Biblical Hebrew, a compact guide. Biblical Greek, a compact guide by William D. Mounts, and Biblical Hebrew, a compact guide by Miles V. Van Pelt. All right. These are important. All right. As you're learning it, you want to also get an Interlinear Bible. And I'm going to show you the two best Interlinear Bibles. We have one of them, the one for the Old Testament, on our Patreon. But you need one for Greek, one for Hebrew. So you need these two. You need a lexicon, and you need an Interlinear Bible. Okay. Now, you also need a Bible, which is called the Cultural Background Study Bible. And then there is a resource that I recommend for the Old Testament, one I recommend for the New Testament, so you can understand the culture. If you get the language and you get the culture down packed, then you can begin to interpret the text. Start first with the biblical Greek and biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek essentials for laymen, so you can get a lot of the basics. Because once you get the basics, you can follow along with the discussion. And then once you start learning the cultural elements that are contemporary to the events that are recorded in the narrative of the text, then you can start to better interpret what's being said. Okay. So let me show that to you, sis, so I can help you with it. Right. Yeah. Simple Reformata. You can say that because you're in Korea and there's no Comcast there. Oh man. Von Eric says, let me know what you need. I used to be a contractor for Comcast. That's awesome, my brother. I like that. I'm definitely going to stay in touch. Von Eric, email me, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Stay in touch with my brother. I appreciate that. All right. All right. So sis, let me show it to you. So first, Leah, Atalia, are you part of the Patreon? Because on Patreon, we have tons of resources for beginner, intermediate, and advanced alike on our Patreon. We have tons of books, articles. We have, like I said, the biblical Greek for Biblical Greek Essentials for Beginners, the Biblical Hebrew Essentials for Beginners. You can purchase that yourself online, but it's going to cost a lot more money than what we're offering. Okay. So once you get that and you start getting into language, you need 3 things. Once you're watching that video, you need one of these books, which these are like $16. You need a lexicon. So the lexicon that I recommend for Greek is the Liddell Scott lexicon. And the one I recommend for the Hebrew is the Hebrew and Aramaic lexicon of the Old Testament, the Halot run, right? So you need these for the grammar. And these also, again, they go into everything from the actual letters of the language to the grammar. All right. It's a great quick reference guide. It starts off, again, giving you the letters. Start your alphabet, learn your alphabet. And then when you learn the alphabet, start with doing transcriptions, right? Or transliterations. So when you see a particular word in Greek or Hebrew, now you're matching that consonant with an English consonant. Look for the vowel markings or diacritic marks, and you're adding that in there. And then go through the pronunciation. These courses, they go into the pronunciation as well. But you need to learn the language because there are a lot of nuances that are hidden in the English translations that you don't see until you get to the language. So you want to get these 2 reference guides. You want to get a lexicon for both, and you want to get an Interlinear Bible. Let me show you the Interlinear Bible. 3 Bibles you need. You need the Cultural Background Study Bible from Zondervan, and you also need the ESV Interlinear for Hebrew and Greek. All right. So let me show you these resources. And again, they cost some money, but you can invest in it. However, if you go to our Patreon, we lessen that load, that financial load, because we provide these resources on the Patreon. Tons of resources. www.patreon.com/DivineProspect. All right. You have my email. I emailed that Santa video about Exodus not being real. I disagree with anybody that says the Exodus is not real. All right. Yes, my brother, I see that Simple Reformation. You're doing a great job. I like a lot of the things, especially the one you pulled out on the Septuagint. The LXX translation. I thought that was a great resource you put on your Patreon. So keep up the good work, my brother. You're doing a pretty good job, man. I really like your study as well. And you keep me, there's like other people who are astute in the chat. The astute people in the chat keep me in check. Because sometimes I may gloss over a fact or a detail, or I may be asked, okay, can you clarify that, Divine? And that's why this is a collective effort. Learning is a social collective effort. No one person should be relied upon for all knowledge. That is simply impossible, right? It's simply impossible. That's how you start a cult, when you do stuff like that. All right. So sis, let me show you the resources. So if you want also, sis, Leah Atalia, email me, kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, and I'll give you a starter guide of everything you need so you can start to get to this level of interpretation. And then once you get these resources and you start going on your own, when you come into our classes, we're going to show you how to use each one of these tools. If we get into, and I say, hey, sis, what is the iota subscript? And what form of the noun does it denote? Does it denote the nominative? Does it denote the dative? Does it denote the accusative, or the direct object, the indirect object? Is it the subject? What is it? What is the iota subscript? What does it look like? And what does it mean? Right? So if you go into this book, and that is a diacritic feature, there's the iota subscript, and you go into this book, we'll get into that. If I say, hey, what's a third declension? What is, let's see, what's a subjunctive? What is an infinitive? What do these forms look like? What do they mean? So as we go into the passage, if I see these things stand out, and it helps to better, because sometimes the translation is good, right? Again, I'm not an expert, right? However, I can follow the experts, and I can see if something, why I feel like it may not be translated appropriately. However, I always like to read the translator's notes for any Bible translation that I'm reading, because critical edition Bibles, the ones that have footnotes next to stuff, gives you additional information as to what's going on in that passage. And if you go to the translator's notes, they give you the methodology on how they approach the translation. Then you get into what's for formal equivalency translations, dynamic equivalency translations. Formal equivalency tries to do word for word. Dynamic tries to do thought for thought. So we look at a text, word for word tries to translate it word for word as much as possible. You can't do it so much because it becomes rigid and it feels too much like the original language, and it does not make sense in conveyance of thought and the English. So everything, there's no Bible that's really a full literal translation because it just won't make sense in English. All right. Then you have what's called a dynamic equivalency translation, which looks at a particular passage and translates the thought in a contemporary manner. This is why the NIV reads differently than a New King James Version. They read differently, and there's a reason for that. Okay. Anytime, sis. Anytime, big sis. All right. Yeah, JS, this wasn't even me putting in work. I was really just testing out the lighting and the camera quality because I'm starting to invest in more equipment so I can improve the quality of live streams. Also, I'm going to be starting a series where I'm going to be teaching in very short formats. I know a lot of people have been requesting that. Divine, can you do 10, 15-minute videos? Can you do maybe max 20, 30-minute videos? Can you do a 5-minute video? I'm going to start working on that now that I'm improving my equipment. All right. Because I know a lot of people ask about that. So I'm going to start doing that. Okay. Yes, my brother Corey Boatwright. Welcome, my brother. Thank you for being here with us. I appreciate that. I'm doing my best. I'm glad you're excited, Sister Leah. A lot of us are. And again, what I'm trying to do is remove you from your high dependency on any kind of so-called leader in the community that does not show all their cards. Okay. I put all my cards on the table and said, this is what I'm working with. Right. So I'm giving you guys everything that I'm using. Right. So that way you can improve upon it and you can be better than me. I teach students so the students can come back and teach me. The only reason why I have students is to train them how to teach me. That's it. If I can have my students teach me without depending on me in order to teach me, then I've done a good job. Anybody that I take on my wing to teach must be able to teach me. And they must teach me based on the methodology that I taught them. Not regurgitating things that they heard from somebody else or from me, but give their own distinct approach based on the template of methodology given and being able to construct a different angle on what it is that's being said or the subject matter that I had not considered before. And that's why I teach. This is why I give the information to the community. Shout out to New Black World Order. Shalom to you as well, my brother. All right. So sis, let me show you these books if you want to get them. Here's the Bibles that I recommend everybody get. All right. I'm going to show it to you. Give me 1 second. Here's the first one. All right. This one here, let me put it up on the screen so you can see it. This is the Hebrew English Interlinear ESV Old Testament from the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. The BHS is the standard manuscript that academia uses, and English Standard Version, ESV. All right. This right here is what you need because everybody needs to start going into the language and learning the language. Let me show you what it looks like so you can see it. All right. So what it does is, it gives you the preface on how the interlinear works, which is great. You always read the preface for everything. Right. But here it goes into the Hebrew right here, like this word, for example, ha'eretz, which says the earth, because you have the ha definite article, which is Yehei, and chametz prefix to the word eretz. All right. And or aretz here. And this right here, it can be translated as the earth, or it could be the land or a place, or whatever the case may be. Is this really depends on the context, right? And let me zoom in. Maybe it's too small. Here it is. And so it gives you the linear Hebrew, and it gives you underneath a direct English translation, like the earth, and they prevailed the waters, and they increased greatly on the earth. That does not make sense in English. However, that's how it reads in the original language. But on the side, it gives you an English translation from the ESV. But as you're learning the Hebrew, you can start to make out these forms in here. And then when you use a guide online, right? Let me show you another tool online that you can use. Right? We're going to take the same passage, which is Genesis chapter 7, verse 18, well, verse 17, where the ha'aretz comes from. All right. And then you can see what is a conjunctive wav or conservative wav. You see it right here. You have your way or your wav, right? With your patach underneath. You have your yod, hirik, and your hirik down here. All right. And this is a feature you don't see in modern Hebrew. But if we go into an online Bible and we go to Genesis chapter 7, And this is verse 17, right? Then you go online. Let me show you online. Right? Verse 17 here. And as you can see, the last word here is the earth, right? Haaretz, the earth. But if you click on tools right here and you break it out, the good thing about these tools is that you can hover over it, right? The earth, right? It says in Hebrew, it's a particle, definitive article, non-common, verb singular, absolute, right? So what does that mean? All right. Well, what is a construct form as opposed to an absolute form, right? The construct form is typically in the possessive, meaning that it is modified and it's not its lexical value or the lexical entry or the entry you find in the lexicon, which is the original language dictionary. That's what the construct is, and it's dependent upon another noun because it could be the book of Moses, right? But the absolute is going to be the regular form of the noun. In this case is aretz. And it's actually found when you look it up in a lexicon, okay? It's a noun. We know that it's a noun, right? Common noun, right? We also look at the particle, the definite article. So we get that by looking at the ha prefix, the he with the chametz underneath. This is the prefix denoting the. It's a definite article, the, and it's prefixed to aretz, which means we're talking to something in particular. Now, in this case, it can be translated as the earth or it can be translated as the land. I don't like translated as the term earth because earth is more of a modern understanding of something. The land is more contextual in regards to that particular time period. All right. Earth understanding that idea didn't exist. Right. However, this says the earth. Right. You have me'al haaretz, or above the earth. Right. But when you hover over it, it breaks down these things. Now, how do you understand these things? Well, you have this book right here that I showed you, Biblical Hebrew. When you go into the Biblical Hebrew, it breaks down all of those forms. Let me mouse over it so you can see all these things we're talking about. It breaks it down in here. So we'll go over to something like haaretz, right? Which is your hey, chametz, your aleph, chametz, your resh, your zere underneath. Your zegol underneath, and then your zade, right? Final zade, haaretz, right? So you go in here. And in here, you'll be able to break it down, and we'll go on to say, okay, how do we know that this is definite article? Let's look up definite article in here to see what it is. How do we know what kind of nouns it is? Then I'll say, go to your compact guide, and we can go into the specifics to find what the rules are, okay, on how to break it down. So this is why when you go into Interlinear, you also need tools to start to break things out into more detail as you're learning the language, okay? Keith Williams, you said, why did Abba Yah remove his name Yah from his people and replace it with the name El? Show me where that happened. What passage of the text did that happen at? Show me. I need to know. Okay, thank you, Trey. I will work on that for you. For you and all those who have asked about it. All right. Shout out to my brother Malik Rain in the building. Thank you so much, King. I appreciate that. Leah, no problem. Hold on, Leah. So it's blueletter.org. Right. I'm gonna drop it in the chat, sis, so you can click on it. And not only does it give you that, it also gives you other tools as well. Right. Let me show you the other tools that you can get along with this. Right. So if you scroll down, it also gives you the phrasing of it. Right. And what's the phrasing? You can see how it's phrased like that elsewhere in the text. Okay. The other tools it gives you other Bible translations for it. It also gives you other cross references. Well, what other passages in the text are relative to this particular passage? It gives you commentaries as well, which I kind of recommend you stay away from, but that's to each his own. It goes into various dictionaries and give you dictionaries on it, and miscellaneous tools as well, like maps and other things that are relative to this particular passage. All right. So it has tons of tools for you to use. Another good thing I like is that it also goes into the Septuagint. So you can see the Septuagint relationship to it. So check it out. Let's go down to the Septuagint. Go down to see here. Right. Apohoge. Right. In the Septuagint. And with that, you'll be able to line up word for word how it's translated from the Hebrew to the Septuagint. You can also use what's called the reverse interlinear, or you can use a regular interlinear. So the difference is interlinear is going to give you the English, right? And then it's going to give you the Hebrew correlation to the English. Reverse interlinear is going to do the opposite of it. It's going to give you the Hebrew rendering with the English direct correlation to it. All right. And sometimes that may help depending upon what you're trying to study. All right. So no promises. I understand that, and it happens to all of us, and this is why this type of study is important, and we take our time with it and consult with people that can give us the resources and methodology. My objective is just to equip you, right? I'm not here to proselytize. I'm not here to convert you. I'm simply here to just give you the tools to fortify your knowledge, okay? And then with these tools, people can start to see how I got on the path that I'm on right now. All right. So I understand, sis, and that's okay. So you want to get that one for the Hebrew, and then they have one for the New Testament. And this is the one for the New Testament here. I'm gonna show it to you on the screen. This is the one for the New Testament. It's called the Greek English Interlinear ESV New Testament, the Nestle Aland Novum Testamentum Gracie or Greece, the NA28, which is the extant manuscript that's being used for the standard of the Greek text in academia. All right. And again, when you go into this, you'll see, again, a similar breakdown in regards to the Greek. OK. And then the other book that I said that I recommend for you is called the Cultural Background Study Bible. Right. This right here, I prefer the NKJV version, but you can get whatever one you want. They have an NIV one, an NRSV one, but this is the one I recommend. And the reason why this is important is because it gives you the culture, the cultural elements, all right, which is extremely important. You cannot understand the text unless you understand the culture. Now, there's tons of other books that go into this, but I want to make this simple. I want you to have these books for reference. I want you to get a lexicon, right? If you want it, I can send it to you in a PDF format because I have a lexicon. I want you to watch those courses for the essentials of biblical Hebrew, biblical Greek for absolute beginners. Okay, so you can understand some of these things as we go over it. When we do the classes, I'm going to point to various things. I'm going to go into the culture. I'm going to go into language. I'm going to go into cognate sister cultures, geography, right? As far as location, I'm going to go into what trades that they have at that time. Was there an artisan, agriculturalist? Was they pastoralist, etc.? I'm gonna go into diet. I'm gonna go into political stresses. I'm gonna go into sister empires. We're gonna talk about all of these things in order to better interpret what's going on. So the brother, like the questions that people ask me, I'm gonna show you the same resources and methodology that I use in order to explain what's going on. Okay. So Karatasab Ban Yasharala says, I watched the Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh Avatar video 3 in one series. Yeah, there's four videos. Do you think the chariots and messengers relate to what modern man calls UFOs or extraterrestrials? Quite possibly. Quite possibly, because whatever the phenomenon that people are witnessing empirically, we have to be able to then line it up with whatever description that the ancients gave to see the consistency. Okay. So that takes a comparative study to do. And that takes effort. So, UFO is just an unidentified flying object, right? You try to describe it the best you can, but you don't know what it is. So when a lot of these prophets had these visions, that's what they were doing. They say it's like this and it's like that. That doesn't mean it was actually what they're saying. It's like is comparative. Similes and metaphors make comparisons. So you have to be able to see that they're only describing it based on the cultural knowledge that they have. Just like we can only describe what we see, that's an unidentified flying object based on the cultural knowledge that we have of what we see. We have a semantic range for all the words that we have, and sometimes we may be able to identify something and we don't know what it is. I'll give you an example of that. If I go into the interior of the Congo, if I go into the interior of the Amazon forest, and I bring a cell phone with me, and I look at one of those indigenous tribes, and I give them the device and say, hey, what is this? They have nothing within the semantic range or lexical range of their language that describes that explains what it is. They can give you, description of it based on their cultural understanding of things. However, they don't know what it is. Okay. Well, I hear what you're saying, my brother. Semper Reformata. Now I have Logos 8 or Logos 8, and I have the gold version. So I have tons of resources in it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna bring up my logo screen so you guys can see it as well. And again, this is the free software that you guys can get to. I don't even use my logos like that. I don't even use it. I don't. Right. However, let me show you guys. So we in Genesis chapter 7, verse 17. And I appreciate my brother Semper Reformata. So if we go into the logos, let me get rid of this. Wait for it to load up because sometimes it can be slow. Like right now, it's loading up very slow. Give that a second. Wow, I had to restart. That's crazy. Oh, biblical manuscripts. I love biblical manuscripts, man. I love biblical manuscripts. Matter of fact, if you're into biblical manuscripts, let me show you something. Check this out. And I have this also on the Patreon as a website suggestion, right? If you love to study manuscripts, this is one of the best places, called the Center for the Study of New Testament Manuscripts. This is Dan Wallace's group, okay? This is excellent if you actually want to go into the library and actually look at these manuscripts yourself. And this is what I do in regards to translations, right? I don't always just rely on the Nestle Island 28. Sometimes I go in here and just pick out a random and just try to translate it. Let me see if I can grab one for you guys. And again, if you want to see the P fragments, some of them are on here as well for those of y'all who are interested in that. Okay. Go and see it. Okay. All right. So let's say I want to get one of the Gospels. I'll highlight Gospels here. Okay. And it'll give me various manuscripts for the Gospels. Okay. And let's say, let me see if I can break it down some more. No, I'll just keep it as Gospels. And let me pull out, and the P are your fragments, right? So let me get an early fragment. Here we go. P66 is going to be one of your early fragments. And let's click view, take a look at it. This predates your Codex Syneticus, all right? And I go here, and what I'll do is that I'll take this image and I will transcribe it myself. And again, we're looking at this various, in a lot of the Greek manuscripts, you have them in uppercase, and a lot of times there's no spacing in between. However, when you learn the language, you can do the separation yourself. So I'll go in here, right? Like this is a lambda here. I'll go in here. This is an omicron here. I'll go in here and I'll do my own transliteration, and I'll do my own translation by looking at the manuscript, right? So if you really want to get fancy, you can do this. I also do the same thing with another website. You want to see? Check this out. And this is another suggestion that I give in regards to website suggestions on the Patreon. So check it out. Let me show you this one, right? This here, so you can go check out the Dead Sea Scrolls, right? Let's go to Exploring the Archive. All right, let's go to Qumran. All right, and let's dive into, matter of fact, let's do biblical compositions, scripture. That's better. All right, and let's grab Hebrew. And let's do something that's, here we go, Isaiah 1Q8, all right? So what I'll do is I'll go in here. I'll grab this one since this has a larger portion of it. And what I'll do is go here to 13, and I'll go in and I'll do my own translation, right? Like this is Yod He Wav He here, Yod He Wav He. So we know this is the name of the Most High here, and I go in Aleph. This is your Lamed. This is your Him. This is your Elohim right here. So I would go in and then transliterate this and then translate it, parse it out, translate it. Okay. So this is the fanciness that I do. Everybody may not do this, but this is what I do for fun, right? This is just fun for me. Okay. People are asking for the websites. Okay, cool. So if y'all want to really get fancy, let's go into these websites. I'll drop the link in the chat for you guys if y'all interested in it. This is the one for the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they also have some Paleo Hebrew scripts, all right, of biblical Hebrew in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the one for the New Testament, let me go back to it. Here's the one for the New Testament. Let's get out of P66. Let's go to the, let me go here to the main scripts, and I'll drop that in here for you guys, all right? No, I appreciate that, my brother Semper Reformata. I do appreciate that, my brother. There's just so much stuff I study at a given time. Sometimes I may forget things. Sometimes I may overlook things. You know, a lot of times when people challenge me and they don't come in the right spirit, I just sometimes realize that it's because they have not studied as thoroughly as I did some things. And that's why they're trying to debate some things with me, which is just why. And sometimes I got to acknowledge, like, you know, when we get the PhD theologians that come in here, okay, you know, that challenge me, and then we put them on the spot and just see, like, they got to read commentaries. You just got to be like, okay, what's going on? Yo, what's up with my Logos? What's going on? We have to look at my event log, see what's going on. This thing keeps crashing. Okay, there we go. Don't crash no more. Okay. Wow, that's crazy. It does that when it's indexing sometimes. And that pisses me off. When I'm doing a live stream sometimes and it's indexing at the same time, then it can crash. But anyway, there it is. Again, yes, that's the book, Tyrell John. It's New King James Version Cultural Background Study Bible. If you go to the Patreon, www.patreon.com/DivineProspect, I actually have a sample that has the entire book of Genesis, entire book of Matthew, so you can get an idea of what that is before you actually purchase the book. All right. Semper Reformata, yes, I want to update to 9. However, the one that I want is extremely expensive. Okay. So I'm going to wait on that for now. The one I want actually does with the original languages version. So the one that I want, I'm gonna show you the packages, the package that I want. Now, if you or somebody else want to gift that to me, I'll be more than happy to receive it. The one that I want is the platinum version, and that is $1,800. All right. However, if I do get funding, I will definitely get the collector's edition, which I really want, which is $9,000. Matter of fact, let me show on the screen. So yeah, if you have any of these higher versions, my brother Semper Reformata, definitely let me know, you know, because I could use it. You know, this is the one I want on the screen. I'll show it to you guys real quick so you can see. This platinum version right here, right? It has 1,100 plus resources, features all of Logos 9 features, etc. You click on more. It'll break down for you what those things are. All right, that it contains. And this is really what I want, right? So this goes into the biblical studies. I want the Greek and Hebrew study sources. That's what I want, right? It has an annotation, the biblical text by source critics. This is a feature that I want. But here's my favorite, the original language exegesis. Now, this is just the platinum version. The collector's version has more original language exegesis, right? Now, I only care about the theological study by going to the church father resources so I can contrast and compare, and the systematic theology resources. But this is my favorite right here, is the original language exegesis sources, okay? That's what I really use it for. I use it for the annotations that I get, the Greek and Hebrew study resources, the church father sources, the original language exegesis, and other things like the genealogical approach that it takes to understanding certain forms, subjects, and so forth, right? But that's the one I really want, and that one is a lot of money. It is not cheap, okay? But I've added different things to it, such as the Syriac, because you know my favorite New Testament is the old Syriac Syneticus Palimpsest. That's my favorite version, and I went over in a lecture why I prefer that. Von Erich says, do they show these in Coptic? Are you talking about on the Center for New Testament Studies website? Are you saying that? So Tyrell says, so for access to your classes, I pledge $20 a month. Yes. So you go to Patreon, you pledge $20 a month, And when we start the classes, a link will be there for that tier and above only, and you get access to the classes. And if you don't become part of the Patreon, that's okay. The a la carte price for the classes is $40, which breaks down to 4 sessions per month. All right. But if you get the Patreon, not only do you get access to the classes, but you get access to all the wealth of resources that we have on the Patreon. Okay. Oh, you do? Okay. Yo, my brother, send whatever you got. And anything you need from me, let me know and I'll send it to you. So I appreciate that. Translation, interpretation, application. Yes, sir. That's it. That's it. So Shawan says, do you have a lesson on the Passover? And did Jesus eat the Passover and then crucified on Passover? Yes, I do have live streams on that. So just type in my name, Passover, in your YouTube search, and you'll find the videos on that. Okay. All right, family. Let me go. I think I gave y'all enough information. If you want to reach out to me even further, go to the email kingdomharbinger@gmail.com, or if you want more resources, go to www.patreon.com/DivineProspect, make a pledge so you can support this ministry, so we can bring more and more resources to the community. Okay. Let me see if there's any last minute questions before I go. Von Eric, you says, is that an African culture? I don't know what you're referring to. Tell me what you mean by that. So Keith Williams, it is not that the name Jacob is really spelt like this. It's not spelled like that either. I don't know why you. Okay. If so, why did Abba Yah change the name from Yaakov to Israel, acknowledging a God named El in the cultures instead? I don't know what you're talking about. I have no clue what you're talking about. Let me show you something real quick. Okay. I'm not sure where you're getting at with that, but let me show you something in case you're not familiar. Okay. Let's go to Shemot chapter 3, or Exodus chapter 3. All right. And we're going to go down for something. I'm going to show you something real quick. All right. Because again, I don't know what you're talking about right now. All right. We're going to go into something. Let me pull it up real quick for you. Again, I don't know where you're getting at with that. All right. All right. So let me bring this up. Exodus 3. And then we're going to go to Exodus chapter 6. All right. So Exodus 3, let me get my ESV. Exodus 6, chapter 3. Let me throw that on the screen real quick. And I'm gonna address this again. I don't know where you're getting at with this. I have no clue. But Exodus 3, chapter 6 says, and he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of who? Yaakov, or Jacob. He didn't say Israel here. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Okay. Now it says in Exodus 3:14, God said to Moses, I am who I am. What do you think this word for God is? That word there for God? What do you think that word is there? When we get into it. What is that word here? Vayomer Elohim El Moshe. What do you think this word is here? This word, Eye. This is Eye Asher Eye. Vayomer Ko Tomar. Right? Tomar. Lib Ne Yisrael Eye She Lachani Elo or Ele Kem, your God. So the key thing is Vayomer, and he said Elohim El to Moshe, Eye Asher Eye, I am that I am. So the word here in the narrative is, and he said who? Elohim said to Moshe, I am that I am. That's what he said. And if we continue to go down, let's continue to go down. Say this to the people. What does it say to the people? Vayomer od Elohim el Moshe. Ko tomar el bnei Yisrael Yahweh or Yahweh. Elohei What's it say? Abo Techem, your fathers. Elohe, the God of your fathers. What's the word there? Yehava. This is what he says. But we also have Elohim in here. Now, why am I saying this? Because you're talking about why did Abba Yah change the name from Jacob to Israel? Well, the text says it's because Yaakov, he wrestled with a messenger and did not let the messenger go until he received his blessing. And then he received the blessing. And then in exchange for the blessing, he had a name change. That is a motif that occurs in the ancient Near East when you encounter a deity. I don't understand what you mean by that. Abraham was changed to Abraham. So what do you get in that with that? Acknowledging a God named El. Well, let's go to Exodus chapter 6 and verse 3. Okay? Let's go to Exodus chapter 6, verse 3. Let's see if that answers. Oh, let me get this out the way so you guys can see. Let's go to Exodus chapter 6, verse 3. And it says, I appeared to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob as God Almighty, El Shaddai, but by my name, the Lord, I did not make myself known to them. So by my name, or the character of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, he did not make that known to them. So that means what we read in the narrative of Bereshit is what's called an anachronism when it comes to the name Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, because it's trying to show you something. Typically, when you say Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, it's when the deity is interfacing directly with the subject, of the object, the accusative, which is typically a person. Okay, but when it's distant, it's El. That is a narrative. That's features of the narrative. That's how you can break it down. But the text is very clear here. He says it. Look at this. See? So he says, but his name, Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, Lo, Noda'ati, Lahem, to them. So he says that he appeared to them as what we say is El Shaddai. That's what we say. But Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh, he didn't make it known to them. So what do you mean why he changed his name to? Because that is a theophoric name. If he appeared as El Shaddai, El would be part of that. El is your title name. Shaddai is your attribute. But I don't understand. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Maybe you're confusing me. So where did the name Israel come from is what I'm getting at. What you mean? The narrative tells you where Israel comes from. It comes from an eponymous ancestor by the name of Yaakov, whose name was changed because he had wrestled with a messenger, a divine messenger, and therefore his name was changed. The name he was given was a given name by his parents, but the name that he was given by the deity is Israel because he strove or contended with this messenger. Trying to understand. Not sure where you're getting at with that. So shout out to my brother Mattiyahu in the building. What's going on? You said what? Meant devil worship. What? I don't know. You talking about the star? What is the star to you? Like the Star of Solomon, other cultures as well that use the star symbol. What does it mean to you? It doesn't matter what it means to me. It's what does it mean in the context and where it's used. You're saying the Star of Solomon. You're not going to find that anywhere in the canon of text. You can find that, though, in the Testament of Solomon, which is a pseudepigraphic work. But you're not going to find that in the text. Now, the Star of Rampham, that you find, but what is that referring to? Is there a cognate to that word? Let's go ahead and pick that up. Let me show you that. Okay, let's go into the Star of Rampham, right? Let's go into that. Let's go to Acts chapter 7, verse 43. I don't know what you're talking about. You're talking about devil worship. Every culture usage is different. It may be what you call devil worship of another culture, but it may not mean the same thing in another culture. You have to be sensitive, culturally sensitive to symbols. Okay. Shout out to my brother Johnny Yisrael in the building. What's going on? All right. So look, check this out. See, I was trying to get off. You saying just tell me without your attitude. Wow, this dude, bro, no disrespect to you, but sometimes you come off like a smart. Then why are you here? And you're not trying to learn anything, my brother. You are challenging what I'm saying. And I know this because I've watched your questioning, your inquiries, and your behavior in the chat. The way you come off is very abrasive. All right. So you get this type of response from me based on your abrasiveness and assertiveness and the things that you pose. It's all in the spirit in which you come. I open up the platform. Matter of fact, I'll open up again. Come on the chat and let's talk. This dude, you don't need to be here then. And if you want assistance in not being here, we can simply block you. Okay? It's that simple, my brother. But this is how I answer. Either you like how I disseminate it or you don't. And if you don't, you ain't got to be here. You can go ask somebody else for the answer. You don't need it from me. It's all in your spirit, my brother. So I'm not sure where you're getting at. The link is right there. Click on the link, Keith. Come in and let's talk. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to another question. That doesn't seem like somebody's trying to give me a loaded question. You're proposing loaded questions. And the way you do it is how you do it all the time when you come in. Sometimes I'm sure you mean well. Sometimes it doesn't seem like you mean well. I don't know. And if you don't like the way that I answer, you don't have to be here. Okay? Thank you, Sister Nisi's Pieces. So we're going to put you in a timeout. All right? Just put you in a kiddie quarter for a second. Let you relax, and then you can come back in and ask your question. All right? That's just how we're going to do. All right? Raymond is funny. So, yo, if you don't like it, you don't have to be here. I don't force nobody to be here. Why do you keep coming back to this channel, my brother, if you don't like how I answer things? See, people in this chat, they understand that I mean well when I say things. Sometimes I may be perplexed based on a question, and I'm from New York, so sometimes this is the mannerism in which I project things. It's not for you to be sensitive, my brother. Like you should have tough skin. You a man, have tough skin, and if I talk this way, don't get offended by it. I'm trying to understand your train of thought. You say random things that are schisms of other things, that are deviants of other things, and I'm trying to figure out the cohesiveness of what it is you're inquiring about. It's not logical. Like, it's not linear. It's difficult. So I'm trying to piece it together. And in the process, if I'm perplexed, I'm going to respond a particular way. It's not for you to take offense to it. This is just my mannerism. This is just how I talk. This is how I get down. If you don't like it, you don't have to be here. Why are you here at 4:22 in the morning on New Year's Eve that you probably celebrate? Why are you here? Get some sleep and enjoy your New Year's Eve. And then if you want, you can come back in the evening and we can go in. Right? So this is just, listen, you're not new here. You see, this is how I delineate information. It's crazy, my brother. But did anybody understand what he's saying? Like, can somebody translate what he's saying to me? Maybe it could be more coherent, and maybe I can answer it differently. I don't understand. You ask something about why did the name of Israel? Okay, let's go to the text. All right, let's go into it. Let's see what the text says. Why the name was changed. Okay, let's go into the text. All right. Go into the text. Because you asked me a question when clearly the text says it. Okay. Genesis chapter 32, verse 24. And Jacob was left alone, and there wrestled a man with him until the breaking of the day. Now, here's the key thing here. This word ish means man. So it doesn't say messenger. It does say man, right? Then it says, and when he saw that he prevailed not against him, he touched the hollow of his thigh, and the hollow of Jacob's thigh was out of joint, and he wrestled him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaketh. And he said, I will not let thee go, except thou bless me. And he said unto him, what is thy name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, thy name shall be no more Jacob, but Israel. For as a prince hast thou power with God and with men, and has prevailed. And Jacob asked him and said, tell me, I pray thee, thy name. And he said, wherefore is it that thou askest after my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name Peniel, for I've seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. So the answer to your question is in the text. So why are you asking me a question that the text itself answered? In Genesis chapter 32, verse 28. The answer is there. Just read the passage. I didn't write it. It's there. So don't block him again. Let him come back in. I'm trying to understand what he's talking about. Because check this out. Let me explain this to y'all. Let me keep it real with y'all, right? the form of the text that we have today is not the form that they had during the time period of Yaakov. Okay, this wasn't written during the time of Yaakov. This wasn't written during the time of Moshe. Moshe wrote the statute, laws, and commandments. And then he had oral traditions by way of prayers, blessings, etc. Those things was codified. And then during the reign of the kings, scribes wrote this stuff down and put it into the text that we have today. Okay. And then it was redacted and modified over time from there. Okay. So the reason why I'm saying this is because in order for you to understand this comes from an oral tradition that was written. This was not the first thing written in regards to the means of the understanding of the culture. They had to see Israel as the name of a people and figure out, okay, how did we inherit this name Israel? So the oral tradition came down. They wrote the oral tradition down, which was then embedded in the book of Genesis in this narrative. And the eponymous ancestor, they put the narrative together based on oral tradition about these eponymous ancestor, and they attached the reasoning behind why the name was changed. Right. And in how the name Israel was then inherited by the descendants of Yaakov. So it's there in the text. This is how things are laid out. So I'm not understanding what question you're meaning. Y'all don't have to time him out no more, mods. I'm just trying to understand what he's saying. Yes, he's saying WL is a heathen god and the symbol is pagan. When you say WL Karatasa, what do you mean when you say that? Oh, he's saying El is a heathen god. How is El a heathen god? Okay, let me show you something else, right? Let me show him something else, all right? Let me show you something else, okay? Check this out. If you're not already familiar with it, check it out. Let me show you something, all right? Let's go to Genesis chapter 33 and verse 20. Man, you making me work tonight. I want to go get some rest, but hey. Genesis chapter 33, verse 20. Let me bring it up on the screen. Let me show you something, right? Very interesting, right? Check it out. All right. It says, and this is the next chapter, and Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, on his way to Padam Aram, and he camped before the city. And from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he brought for 100 pieces of money, the piece of land on which he had pitched his tent. Okay. Now, Kesita. So if you want to know anything about this, I have two books. One book talks about To Your Tents, O Israel. It's a book that I have that goes into tent theology, which is very, very interesting. I recommend you read that. And another book is Bedouin Culture in the Bible. So you can learn about the tents in the literal cultural sense and learn tent theology from the other book. Okay. But it says here, then he erected an altar. Who? Yaakov. Because look, if we go back to the previous chapter, right? Previous chapter, what happens? I just read it. He wrestles. His name is changed. So what does he do? He provides a stone marking, again, which is something that's done in ancient Near East. And what he does, he names it El Elohei Yisrael. So how could this be the name of some kind of heathen god or foreign deity when Yaakov acknowledged it as the same deity? Where's this coming from? I'm trying to understand where that's coming from. Wait. I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back to it. Hold on. Let me take it slow with you, my brother. All right. Let's go to Genesis 33. Let's go down to the last verse. All right. Let's break it out in the Hebrew. El Elohei Yisrael. Now, this here is in what we call the construct form, the plural masculine construct form. And we know because of the zere and the yod. And this means El, the power, right? El, which is the power of Yisrael. El, the power of Yisrael. That's what he called the altar. The altar is where you give sacrifices. How is this a pagan deity? How is this a heathen deity? Show it to me. Where is it a heathen deity? Show it to me. This is why when I get questions, I have to be able to discern the sincerity behind a question based on a person's behavior. And his behavior has been very inconsistent. Now, he admits he smokes, he gets high. So he's probably high right now asking these questions. And it's not fully coherent, and that's okay. Hey, if you want to get high, that's your business. All I'm saying is don't get high, come in here, and then try to throw stuff out there. And when I respond a certain kind of way, take offense to it. I don't know if you're high right now or not, my brother, but I know you do get high, right? Because you told me that in the chat before in the live stream, and I saw a picture of you with a bag. I think you had nick bags or dime bags in your hand of weed, or might have been a dub bag. I don't know. Or might have just been a sandwich bag with weed in. Okay. So I don't know. All I'm saying is, my brother, is what you're saying is not making any sense. And it sounds like you're getting that from some kind of pseudo information online somewhere. Okay. El is the patron deity of Yisrael, the people of Yisrael, according to the narrative. Because Yisrael has the name El in it, and the epigraphic data, the inscriptional data in the Iron Age period, before we get the fully written text, we know that El was already a deity of Israel. However, we also have inscriptional text that lines up Israel and the deity Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. So obviously El, which is the theophoric name of a people, is connected to the worship of Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh in inscriptional Hebrew and in Moabite Semitic script, and the Moabite Stella, where it lines Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh up with the people Yisrael, which means El is already a theophoric name that comes from the familial cult of the people. That means it was passed down. And Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh is the proper name of that deity, because El can mean power, or El can be a specific deity, as we see in the Ugaritic text. But in regards to the Israelite lineage of knowledge, we know that El was the one that called Abraham from Haran, Haran, all the way to Canaan. It was El that did that. Shaddai itself, which is another very important word, because some people say, oh, it means double-breasted. That's not what it means, if you know the language. All right. But if you see this, that was an attribute added to El, and that was the covenant name that he made with Abraham. Right? No, I'm not saying in your case, my brother, because Matayahu, when you chat in here, you're coherent. I can understand you. However, weed affects everybody differently. I should know because I used to smoke weed. So I should know. So I'm just saying weed affects everybody differently. In regards to him, I see that as affecting his train of thought or the way he expresses himself. And then when I try to understand what he's saying, it's just not coherent. Then he jumps to another subject, and it's confusing. So it frustrates me a bit because I'm trying to follow him and I'm doing my due diligence to answer him. I could just ignore him. I could just block him. But I'm trying to give, and this is what we do here. We give people an opportunity in the chat to be addressed. I sent the link from the jump in and talk if he wants. I'm trying to see where he's getting at with this. I'm trying to see. Thank you, my brother Berean Watchman. I try. So again, I'm showing you all this evidence. Matter of fact, let's go into the Moabite Stella. Let me show you this. All right. Let's take a look at this. All right. Let me bring it up for you so you can see. I want to show you. Okay. What we're going to do, just so you can see this, is we're going to look at a source outside of Israel that lines up Israel to Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. Okay. This is called the Moabite stone, or the Misha Stele. Okay. I want to show you something. All right. Check this out. We're going to look at line 18. All right. Line 18. Let's go to line 18. All right. I'm going to show it to you. Let's go to line 18. All right. And I want you to see if you see something distinct in line 18. We're going to look at the Paleo Hebrew. Let's just show this to you real quick. All right. This right here is distinct. Yod-Heh-Wav-Heh. And then Yod, Shin, Resh, Aleph, Lamed. you have Yod He Wav He, and then you have Yisrael. Okay. Now let's scroll down to the square script. Right, same line, line 18. You have Yod He Wav He. You have Yod Shin Resh Aleph Lamed, Yisrael. Okay. Now, those of you who cannot read this, let's go down to the translation. So you can see what line 18 says. And it says, the vessels of Yod He Wav He, and dragged them before Chemosh. Now the king of Yisrael had built Yahaz and dwelt therein, while he fought against me, and Chemosh drove him away from before me. And I took from Moab 200 men, all the head men thereof, and I brought them up against Yahaz and seized it, to add unto Dibon. I built Karesh, the wall of Ye'arin, or the woods, and the wall of Opel, right, which is an Acropolis. But let's go up for context, what he's saying here, right? He's saying, I am Misha, son of Chemosh, king of Moab, the Dibonite. My father reigned over Moab 30 years, and I reigned after my father, and I made this high place for Chemosh. It says the high place of salvation, for he saved me from all the assailants, and because he had caused me to look upon all my foes. Omri was the king of Yisrael, and he afflicted Moab days many, for Chemosh was angry with his land. And his son succeeded him, and he too said, I will afflict Moab. In my days, he said so, and I looked upon him and upon his name, and Israel utterly perished everlastingly, and Omri possessed the land of Mehedeba. Okay, and Israel dwelt therein his days and half the days of his son 40 years. What am I saying? Israel was a people and a place. Omri was the king over Israel, the people in the place that normally represent the northern tribes. And their deity is Yod He Wav He. However, Israel's name there with the it's a theophoric name with the name El in it, but their deity is Yod He Wav He, which is a connecting conjunction between El and Yod He Wav He. Well, how do you reconcile that? You go right into the narrative of the text, because we don't have it in the epigraphic material. It's not there. Okay. So I'm trying to understand where you're getting at. So I don't see him here no more. I know he's not timed out no more. Maybe he doesn't want to go in here, but I'm going to end it off here, family, because this session, I'm just going to make it unlisted. I'm not going to make it public, because I'm just testing here. If you want to go back and check it out, if you've already watched this, just save it and you can go back and watch it, because it's unlisted. Okay. Don't share it, but you can just keep it and watch it for yourself. But it will be unlisted for anybody else. So anybody who was not on here, they just simply missed that. But I'm just trying to understand. And it frustrates me when people make comments like that unnecessarily, because I'm trying to understand their train of thought. How can El be a heathen name when El is the deity of Israel? And Yod He Wav He, we have the narrative that explains that, of the eponymous ancestor of the narrative from the oral tradition that they laid down that explain how you harmonize the two. Same to you, my brother, Semper Reformata. Enjoy your day, King. All right. Facts, sis. All right. So Jen and Jews 7-day theory. I would, but let me go, because it's like 4:38 a.m. and I need to get some sleep. I haven't been asleep yet. Let me get some rest. I have a long day tomorrow and the day after, so I want to get some sleep. All right. So I can do this New Year's session. Matter of fact, I didn't even put my notes together, and I probably won't now. Now I'm gonna have to wing it for y'all, because I was on here much longer than I expected. This is the time I was supposed to actually put notes together to discuss with you tonight, but I'll just wing it tonight. Right? We'll just do an open session for New Year's for y'all. All right. But I'm gonna go and get some rest again. I don't know why he's saying that. Like, why would you ask me? I don't even teach that. Like, and I did a whole series, a 4-part series, where I'm explaining El Shaddai, Yod He Wav He, El Elyon, 3 of a kind or one and the same. Go back and watch the series, and your answer is there. Okay? Just go watch the series, and you will get your answer. And hopefully what I shared already answered it. Okay? I'm not sure what you say, my brother. Genesis and Jews 7-day theory. I'm not sure. Trey, I don't know if Keith is still here, but I dropped the link. Whether he's here or not, he can still click the link and get in on the show. There it is right there. But with that, family, thank y'all for helping me test this. Y'all said the quality is better. I have to get a backdrop. I don't want to zoom in anymore. I might have to do that until I get a backdrop, which I plan on getting soon next month. But in the interim, I'll have the zoom so you don't see like my window. You don't see behind me on this side. But again, I was just Michael James or Michael James. It was random. I'm just talking. But I just wanted to talk enough so I can go back and review the live stream and make sure the quality is up to par. And then going forward, I'm gonna make some more changes to my equipment so that way I can give you guys the best quality. All right. And now that I have the lighting here, I'll be able to do some quick videos for you guys. Once I get the backdrop and the lighting now with my camera and another camera that I'm gonna get as well, I'm gonna be able to improve the quality. I have a videographer. Shout out to my brother Christian out here. So I do have a videographer. Me and him, we've been working on a couple of things starting next month. And then I'm gonna give you guys some shorter videos, better quality, more series. And please sign up for the Patreon if you're not already signed up for the Patreon, because we're gonna have exclusive series on there, and then we'll also have a series on here on YouTube. And then if you have the app, there also will be some hidden videos on the app too that you only see if you have the app. And the lessons button on the main screen. Click on the lessons and you'll see some videos we'll have in here that you won't find on Patreon, that you won't find on YouTube, but you need the app to find it. All right. Thank you to everybody that donated. I appreciate it. Everybody that is here with us, pray this out. I pray the Most High will continue to enlighten you and bring you on the path of righteousness for his name's sake. I pray that you continue to give him the glory, no matter what the work is that you do. Continue to use these tools and this methodology to get closer to Yah. Do not let it drive you away from Yah. Do not allow it to make you too secular in regards to your thinking, because you need to couple your walk with Yah with the knowledge that he's provided to get into understand him better. All right. And if we're able to harmonize this, we'll be better suited and fortified for things that come our way. All right. Let him continue to be your anchor. Continue to hide in the shelter of Yah and the shadow of the Almighty. And in doing so, he will send two-layered spirits to go and watch over you. And I pray that all of you have these things. All right. You said list it. What do you want me to list Jeshurun Ben-Hur before I leave? All right. Yahudah Ben Yisrael. I appreciate that. Oh, I'm glad you did. Seth, thank you for reminding me that. Oh, man, I was thinking the other day. I said, man, I was supposed to do something. Let me write that down. App 4. Yes, you're right. Because some people overseas cannot get access to the app. And like I said, I was going to put the APK in my cloud storage, send you guys a link so you can download it. So I appreciate that. Shout out to Sister Pam in the building. Signs of the Times TV HQ. What's going on, King? Shauna Dorfera, what's going on? You know what I'm saying? Anytime, King. I appreciate the donation, my brother. Get Wise. Thank you so much. And family, if you guys need anything, email us at kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. We do what we can to help you out. You also can give via Cash App, which is $ DivineProspect if you want as well. And please make sure everybody gets the app. Make sure you get the app. All right. And if you need us, you can call us or email us. All right. So love you, family. Thank you for watching. Thank you guys for helping me to assess the quality of the live stream and my new lighting. And like I said, I'm working on getting new equipment based on all the donations you guys are giving. I'm going to put it in a separate pot and use that to purchase new equipment. And we're going to continue to make this live stream more and more popping for you guys to enjoy. All right. So I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. JS says where I find the app. JS, email us and we'll send you the instructions for the app if you want it. But you simply just go to your Apple App Store, your Android Google Play Store, type in My One Church app, My One Church app. You'll see it scrolling along the bottom. Once you download, install it, you're going to open it up. And in the zip code field, as it comes across the screen, in the zip code field, you're going to type in 30064. Kingdom Harbinger Ministries will show up. Click on that entry and it'll bring you right into the app. Okay. All right. When am I coming on tonight? I'm gonna try to be on at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tonight. If I get enough sleep and if I'm able to quiet down my house in time, I'll be able to get on at 10 or 10:30 p.m. That's my goal. All right, no later than 11 p.m. And then depending on how that goes, I will also try to do a Friday session, which is January 1st for you guys as well. We'll do our typical Freestyle Friday. All right. All right. That will be wonderful right now, sis. Wonderful. Thank you so much for your hospitality. We appreciate that. All right. All right. So family, get some rest. Thank y'all so much for watching. I appreciate that. All right. Thank you for the support. Thank you for your prayers, the edification in the chat, resources you share with me in the chat. I appreciate everybody. And if you need me for anything, we're here to help. All right, family. So get some rest. And I'll see y'all this so-called New Year's Eve as we bring in the new year together. All right. Going hard body. All right. Love you, family. Get some rest. Peace and shalom.